Welcome to the Been There, Done That podcast, where we give our guests the opportunity to talk openly about their career, their ups and downs, and all things in between. You can follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch it on YouTube. If you enjoyed the podcast, give us a like and a follow on our social media, which you can find in the link in the show notes. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 13. I'd like to welcome Sophie Taylor onto the podcast. Sophie is a national hockey player for the HockeyRoos and was brought into the squad in 2019 after making a successful debut in 2018. Sophie outlined her early setbacks with chronic fatigue, building the team culture, and what has impacted her to be the player she is today. Sophie is currently preparing to take on New Zealand in a Trans Tasman Series starting at the end of May. Best wishes to Sophie, and I'm sure she'll be in line for the Olympic selection. Thank you all and enjoy the podcast.
Nice.
So, we're live. We're ready to go. Sophie Taylor's sitting in the chair. She's in the hot seat. Just come off for training today. We're gearing up. We're ready for Tokyo.
Yeah, that's the plan.
It's a plan.
Yep.
What's going on? How does it all work now from flowing in? Do you have to? Is the squad have to get cut down? The Olympic squad?
Yeah, so we're
picked?
currently a squad of 25 that will get picked into a squad of 16 with a couple of reserves. Yep. So, yeah, pretty cutthroat and close. I guess we were looking at probably having a lot of time spent here in Perth leading into the Olympics, but now all of a sudden we've just got back from a trip to Darwin. We're heading to New Zealand next weekend.
Yes.
And then New Zealand are actually coming over here at the end of June as well.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, which is really exciting.
They're pretty cool. How was that trip down to Darwin? Was that just a bit of a training camp?
Yeah.
Acclimatization camp?
Yeah, so we had some games against each other, intra-squad, had a few VAAs, which is just athletes coming into our program, which was awesome, and, to get used to the heat. So it was fantastic to be able to practice those conditions. They probably weren't hot enough despite how hot Darwin is at the moment, but it's the closest we can get to it. So, it was good.
Does it have an actual effect? Could you feel the difference yet?
I went to Tokyo 2 years ago, 2019. They had a test event leading into what was supposed to be the Olympics last year, and it was so hot. First game there, you can't think straight. It's just engulfing, and then depending if you play early in the morning, so usually it'll be like a 10 or a 12 o'clock game thereabouts, or you'll play at night. It's very different conditions. You've got the heat to deal with and the, humidity all the time. But then the later it goes on, the heat does drop out. But then the humidity really increases in the evening games. So you basically just come off saturated. So those late games are actually in some ways more challenging to prepare for. We've got a 9:15 game at night. It's a lot of time sitting around that you've got to think about how
the humidity is different. It's not just because the water doesn't evaporate off the skin. So it's just sitting there. You're not really cooling down, are you? So how do you prepare? So obviously it's different. Hydration is obviously the key one. How, in terms of the differences between like a regular game when it's winter versus going up there? What are you kind of the differences?
Yeah, so pre-cooling has been a big thing that we've been looking at. So having slushies or ice towels or a cold shower and making sure we can have, our heart rate and our body temp as low as it possibly can leading into the game has been a big focus, and then using strategies during the game as well. So cooling strategies. There'll be some fans with misters on the sideline, which will be really, really good. And then hydration comes into it. If you're entering a game dehydrated, you're already behind the 8 ball. So making sure we are adequately hydrated, but also then practicing if you're not hydrated, how much do you need to consume to make sure in the morning you're then hydrated come game time. Lots of different variables, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of times when girls will wake up in Tokyo and will be dehydrated just due to the conditions, but making sure it's as least dehydrated as you possibly can, and then how you can turn that around. The
pre-cooling stuff, how, like the cold showers and that sort of, how long before an actual game start would you start doing that? It was not like you don't cold showers, change and then go straight out. How long before you start? Yeah,
so we tried the slushies, for example. I think that was about 30 minutes before we left. But I think the plan will be that we'll have them for even longer before we leave. So it might be the hour and a half before we leave the accommodation or the village, you're starting to slowly consume pre-cooling. We found that the 30 minute before, it was almost too much liquid too quickly. And so you got into the car on the way to the ground and need to go to the bathroom, and you were almost like way too cold, and there was too much fluid inside of you in your gut. Anywhere from an hour and a half to an hour, kind of constantly just keeping your temp as low as you can, not going out in the sun and exposing yourself to heat or being outside more than you need to. Really just, using the cold environment as best you can. The change rooms are going to be air conditioned as well.
That's
which we used in Tokyo for that test event. We went in at halftime, and it was so nice. Change of uniform was actually another thing we've done. Change of shoes, change of socks.
Was there a difference as well with like a pre-game warm-ups and that sort of stuff? Was that all shortened as well? Because, obviously you don't need to warm up as long if it's 40 degrees or humid and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, so we shortened our warm-up a fair bit, actually. So almost like a quarter of a lap or a half a lap because you're already just so warm out there and dynamics were shorter. More drinks breaks as well. So, again, just kind of reiterating how important hydration was and getting it in, not just drinking a half a bottle in one sitting, little sips.
That's the big one as well. You don't want to have it all at once because then it shocks the body as well because you don't want to have the whole, liter of water straight up. You want to mix it in. Post game as well, do you take into account how much fluid loss there is as well?
Yeah, so we weigh in and weigh out, which is really good. So you know how much fluid weight you've lost and then straight into your recovery. So some form of carbohydrate and some form of protein as soon as we possibly can. And then again with game times at the Olympics, that's going to change because after a 9:15 game, which you're probably not going to be done until 11:30, if not 12, are you really going to be wanting to go to the dining hall to then eat? So as a result, working out some good strategies, some really easy foods that we can get in because our sleep is as important as your recovery food. I personally think for me, sleep is even more important. And so, working out what we can do to make sure that, we balance both of those aspects.
So what have you kind of come down with, like the nutrition was? What have you thought about that late game? What have you been... Have you trialled any of that?
So we trialled it in Darwin, which is really good. Banana post a game or I'm a Chobani Fit, like yogurt, nice and easy. Some of the girls tried like a rice type pudding. Like I think you can buy them in like tubs, like you buy the rice that you put in the microwave. Some people had baked beans. Some people had a bit of bread. Just things that are practical, that are easy to take. Some people, I had some pasta back in my room. So when I got back, I popped it in the microwave nice and quick. And then I could eat it like a really small serve and then went straight off to sleep. Any kind of things that are easier on hand. And then we're going to a foreign country. I guess it's not that foreign, but an overseas country. So everything you do here, you may not be able to do over there.
Well, you might not be able to get the same foods and that sort of stuff. Do you know what was the kind of the biggest drop off in the fluid loss? Was there a big one?
Yeah, I reckon I lost like up to 2 kilos in the game. Wow. So like to the point there was, green, you're within a good reason, like a good level. And then yellow is kind of, you've lost a fair bit. And I was, I'd also had a lot of liquid during the game too. We find as defenders, because we spend longer stints on the ground, spend less time on the bench in smaller intervals. Like we might come off once a quarter, whereas other positions will come off multiple times a quarter. We're the ones that typically lose the most because you're out in the sun or out in the environment for as long as you can.
Muscle mass as well plays a big difference. The more muscle you have, the more likely you're going to lose some because it holds a lot. We had one of our practice matches leading into the waffle season this year where it was like we played on a Saturday. It was like 40-degree day. And, we had extra rotation, that sort of stuff. But all of our bigger guys, like the big inside mids and that, they lost up to 8 kilos. It was ridiculous. Some guy weighed in at 99 and then post weighed 91.
Wow.
I looked at it, I was like, and he goes,
you should go off and box now and just compete in some weight-based category post a footy game. Like weigh in light and then,
I do a little bit of Muay Thai training and then I had my Muay Thai coach on as well. And he's told me stories where he's just, when he's had to cut weight for fights and he didn't even know where he was. Like he weighed in on the scales and he was so disorientated that he just stumbled around, couldn't find like where he put his clothes and just picked up some random person's water bottle and just chugged it.
Wow.
It's dangerous. And it's almost weird in a way because they weigh that weight for 10 minutes, but they fight, that night sometimes or even some other organisations, they fight 24 hours after they weigh in. So they're not, it's a fake number really. They don't really fight at that weight.
Yeah. Who's the best at cutting and getting, the lowest they possibly can to then rebulk? Who can then consume the most amount of food and fluid in a very short period of time?
And even if you're a bigger person as well and you cut down a lot of weight, 24 hours isn't really enough time to get it all back. And then you go into a fight compromised and then your chances of performance is less. And usually what happens if they do go up a weight class, they end up performing better because they don't have to put their body under so much stress.
Yeah.
Two or 3 days before that week leading into a fight.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It'd be interesting to see the injury rates of that. Like, if you move people a weight class, do people get injured less? Do they perform better? where do those stats go?
Yeah, I think there's not many stats, but a lot of the kind of general consensus is that when most guys do go up, if they've had to cut a lot of weight to go down to that, they usually do. There was actually an incident 2 or 3 weeks ago where they weighed in and then two fighters, they did the face-off and then obviously they dehydrated and that sort of stuff. And then there was a bit of an altercation. Someone pushed the other guy. And because they're so dehydrated and there's less kind of fluid around the brain, he got knocked back like this. And that whole night he was essentially concussed. Like he was vomiting, he had headaches and all this stuff. And he couldn't, the doctors ended up ruling him out of the fight because obviously he was compromised. But all because he essentially his neck got pushed in the chest and he whipped his neck back. And that just, because you got no protection there around your brain.
Wow.
That's it.
Crazy.
So how long were you up in Darwin for?
About 10 days.
10 days. Yeah. And then also obviously it's pretty full on. It's training and playing. And did you get much time off?
No, I think we got a day off, but it was after the 9:15 game. So I spent the morning asleep and then I felt pretty rotten for the rest of the day. So just kind of had a really cruisy day. I've been to Darwin before as well, so I wasn't, I guess, as keen as maybe if you went overseas somewhere and you wanted to see the country. I'd seen the bits that I wanted to see of the NT. I mean, I'd love to go back there in the future, but I wasn't desperate to get out.
What did you kind of do to kind of, get your mind out of hockey? Because you're there for 10 days and it's all hockey. Did you kind of try and separate yourself a little bit, like read books, I guess, or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm massive for having something outside of hockey and having balance and all of those aspects. So I work as a physio, so not that I could treat anyone obviously while I was away, but I've still got, bits of PD that I can do and notes and different admin bits and pieces. So that for me, I'm combining that with I do some keynote presentations as well. So keeps me, I guess, busy and something I can constantly work at, no matter where I am, which is really good. I'm a big reader too. Yeah. So, reading is a big part of it. Netflix, Stan, all those kind of things. I love listening to podcasts and I find they're a great way to remove myself from, my current situation or environment and put myself into someone else's life, whether that be another athlete or, a completely different story or environment. I find it really, really interesting to learn about other people and life experiences and,
What are you talking about in your keynotes? Is about like a physio, what kind of stream do you kind of go down?
Yeah, anything and everything. Yeah, okay. So I did a lot of talks when I was back home in Melbourne through the VIS. I did some VIS tours where people would come through and I'd show them our facilities and tell them a bit about my journey and some of my setbacks and, again, life lessons that I'd learned. And I also did school visits there too. So that's kind of where it started. I've had, I guess, like any athlete, lots of setbacks along the way. So there's definitely a resilience piece. Also had chronic fatigue. So balance and finding that balance and learning to look after your body and those bits and pieces. And then it's, moving into how important exercise is. So when I say I could speak on anything, okay, I can't speak on cryptocurrency, I know nothing about it, but I feel like most topics, there's a way in which I can take it and share and, I guess inform the audience that I'm presenting to. I'd love to move into a corporate space one day and deliver a corporate presentation that has action, because often I find, people present to you and you're like, oh, that's amazing, that could change my life. And then time goes on and you realize you haven't introduced that. Whereas in the corporate sector, I think there's space for delivering those presentations and then running an exercise session at lunchtime or something, a daily 15-minute exercise, program that everyone has that they've got to find space, that's encouraged by their organisation to complete, and they're rewarded for it if that's what we have to do to get people moving. That's
definitely something that helps, because I did one kind of topic, or it was like someone came down and he gave like a presentation of strength conditioning, communication sort of strategies, that sort of stuff, and he gave like the first kind of hour or two was like sit down lecture kind of material, but then after that was all practical based. Like we had to split up in groups and communicate, learn how we can communicate better with each other and all this sort of stuff too. No, definitely more engaging, because if you action on it, when you learn and you action and you fail and then you get better, then it's like you've actually cemented in your brain. It's learned. It's a pathway that's a neural pathway that's been driven into you, which does work, which is perfect, doesn't it?
Definitely does. Yep.
So then physios, how do you fit in being a physio as well as, because it's sport? I'm a physio, you work it as a sport.
I'm in private practice.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't work associated with a sports team at the moment just because it doesn't logistically work. But I work, 3 days a week, 3 half days, 12 till 6:30 on a Tuesday, 10 till 3 on a Thursday, and then depending on when we train on a Saturday, anywhere from 3 to 6 to 7 hours. Yeah, wow. So, I mean, my history of chronic fatigue probably gives you an intel to the type of personality that I have, is that I'm a doer and I'm a, go, and I don't often rest and I don't stop, and I've run myself into the ground. So I've had to learn how to manage those two aspects. But I would much prefer to obviously recover from my training that I'm doing and make sure that hockey is the priority, but I need to be challenged. I need to be stimulated outside of hockey, and physio, whether I was studying or now working, really, really hits a nail on the head. So
with your chronic fatigue, when did it start? Did you realise, was that something that happened early?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed in 2013, but I reckon and that was when I was in year 12. I had it for a good 2 to 3 years beforehand, if not longer. Yeah, so I went from the kid, and I guess when I tell this story, I went from the kid that played every sport after school, was so active, but not only was I active, I loved school. Like I got I had a real passion to be at school and to learn and to grow and to, I just really enjoyed it. So I all of a sudden then couldn't get out of bed in the morning and I couldn't go to school. I was too tired to go to school. I'd fall asleep in class. And the reason I say that is I think it's quite common for teenagers to not enjoy school, not want to get out of the bed in the morning. It's quite common. But for me, it was really, really abnormal. And it was really strange.
Yeah, right.
I lost my identity. It was awful. I still remember reflecting back. There was times where I never thought I'd play hockey again. At that stage, I was playing in, the junior state teams and made some junior Aussie early kind of futures groups. It was really awful, and I learnt so much about myself at such an early age. I often get asked, would I go through it again and all those kind of things. And I think people are surprised at my response is that 100% I would go through it again, because as awful as it was and as challenging as it was, the things that it taught me about myself and the growth that I've had as an individual, I think has set me up for the future, and it will be something that I'll forever carry with me. I'll be that much better for having gone through the experience and having learnt from the experience.
There's a saying, I think I've said it before, hard times create hard people, and then hard people create good times. Like it's just like a circle goes around like that. So obviously that's something evolution provides us as well. And also in certain people's kind of stories as well, hard times makes them better. And then once you reflect back on it, you're obviously like, well, I've had to kind of go through that. And cyclical as well during your life, where you kind of sit down and it gets easier, then you relax a little bit too much, and then it kind of goes back around, and you have to put yourself back through hard training and to get yourself back up again. But going back, did you kind of just keep pushing through that early couple years, and then you finally realize I need to go and see someone? Is that
we saw lots of doctors, and that was the most challenging thing. I had that many blood tests and medical tests, and we just didn't know what was going on for a long period of time. And chronic fatigue is often the diagnosis you get once everything else has been kind of eliminated, and there's no cure. You don't just take this medication. You don't take a supplement. You don't, you can't necessarily just do one thing and it will fix it. For me, it was, lots of medical appointments, finally getting that diagnosis, which was, I guess, an answer without much of a solution. I didn't play 18s or 21s in my year 12. I barely played sport. I missed out on a lot of things in year 12 that, I wish I would have had the opportunity to do so, but I was too unwell to do so. And it lingered over to first year uni. It definitely impacted friendships and social settings and, all of those kind of things that form a big part of your, I guess, teenage years. So
chronic fatigue, there's not like a marker or something like a blood. You do a test and then there's the result you've got. So it's just a trial and error. You tick everything, or you cross everything else off, and then that's the last thing. So it takes a while for it to come.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I had lots of eating intolerances which were diagnosed over the time, and lots of other, deficiencies. So I was zinc deficient, iron deficient, B12 deficient, vitamin D deficient, despite having very, very brown skin. And I've always had brown skin, which is just so bizarre. I spent a lot of time outside. All of these kind of things that, through the picture, they also think I've got an autoimmune disease, which currently they didn't know at the time, but may present later on. if and when that presents, I may never know.
Wow.
Just like lots of dead ends and lots of unanswered ends as well, and lots of doctors who, now working as a physio, it's really interesting when I get a patient who comes to me and I don't know what's going on. At the time, I got so frustrated at medical staff, not like, you've studied in this, how do you not know what's going on with me? Like, I need an answer. Whereas now it's, it's interesting to be on the other side of it, and I see a patient who comes in with an injury or an issue, and it's like, oh, actually, I haven't seen this, let me refer you off somewhere else. And the other person's like, well, I don't know either. So that's been not necessarily reassuring, but I guess, nice to experience the other side, that we don't always have the answers.
100%. That's so true. Because everyone's so different, and there's obviously different things that happen in their lives outside of what they're doing as like a sport, for example, that you can't put a finger on, and you can't say doing this is going to help you do that, because I might only see you for an hour, but what you're doing for 23 hours outside of this is having a bigger impact on your life. As well, that the chronic fatigue, that would have obviously been such a challenge because it happened during the formative years of your career.
Mm-hmm.
How did you kind of, you didn't play and all that stuff, did you have to kind of make it all back up after, once you kind of got better?
Yeah, I in some ways, reflecting back, I probably also rushed coming back from it.
Okay.
I think I just kind of was like, you know what, I'll be okay. It's fine. I'm tired. It's fine. And push through. And I kind of have that approach to life. Like, I'll just get on with the job, and I work pretty hard. Whether I had to make up for it, I was definitely behind the ball, 100%. And I think, time has probably told it took me a little bit longer to debut for the HockeyRoos than most of my peers.
Okay.
But in saying that, I think everyone, and this is something I struggle with, everyone has their own journey, and I've learnt that, and I understand that now. And you can't compare yourself to others just because my best friend is playing for Australia at an age where I think I should be, or, I think I'm up to the standard, doesn't mean that I should be, or I deserve to be, or you might be told, no 100 times, but how do you not know that the 101st time is going to be a yes? And you do get to a point in life where you might have to choose another avenue or pathway, but I was definitely behind the 8 ball, and things didn't fall into a place as early or as quick as I would have liked them to. But in saying that, again, the lessons you learn through those setbacks and the resilience that you build and you take with you for life going forward. Being an elite athlete is not easy. It looks beautiful. It looks awesome. And I don't want people to think that it is only easy, because it's honestly the best job in the world, but it is so, so hard at times. And I think I struggled initially looking at others and going, oh, well, you're an elite athlete. Like, you look like you've got it so easy, so I should also have it so easy. And I didn't. So that's, I guess, a message that I like to pass on. That, you'll follow your own pathway. You'll follow your own journey. My journey goes up, down, sideways, around about. Even this week, it's gone multiple different directions in a space of a very short period of time. But, knowing that it's your own journey and you own it is really powerful.
I think that's, as well, a lot of young kids getting into sport and they're breaking in like so young, 17, 18, and then they kind of, you get put into that one, you choose the sport, you choose, but you decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do, but you're not really able to accept, or you don't really know what's going to happen, or you don't really know what you're getting yourself in for. You're like, almost you're going in blind. Yeah. Like, not enough people kind of, it's not popularized enough, or not enough people kind of, you don't get taught a lot of it. It's like it's just an experience thing, and you sink or you swim kind of philosophy. I guess you get into my sport, AFL, they get into it, and then they almost the first couple of years you're a deer in the headlights, and then if you kind of make your way through, or you're out within a year or two, and it's kind of a harsh reality, and then you almost, or a lot of people have said that they almost say they fall out of love of the sport. They kind of get resentful a little bit of the player, or not players, but the team that were around because they didn't support them enough. It's kind of, it's so hard. And that's why I think one of the reasons why I also started the podcast as well, because I work with a lot of different athletes, and you get to experience what's going on. And that's kind of the biggest thing, that they kind of weren't, all the ones who will come down and play in the state leagues, they would say they weren't ready. There was no one to kind of, no guidance. And now I guess it's kind of getting a bit more popularized now that it's out there, and then there's more people like yourself and other people get on podcasts, and then it's all about just if they listen.
Yeah,
that's another one.
Spending the time listening and learning from others. So,
and then that's even harder as well for young kids, is to listen, because you also get a little bit of arrogance, because in the under 18s, or that they're the top level, and then they're always the stars, and they get looked up and they kind of get a bit of, not saying that everyone gets a little bit of an ego, but there's obviously ones that kind of are up there and they like to see themselves do well, but then when they get into a high level system, they're the bottom. And they've got to work their way back up again. Yeah. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Tangent story, but missed out on the first ever state team I tried for. So I had a dream as I don't know, let's go 9 or 10-year-old that I wanted to play for Australia in whatever sport that was. I played every sport at the time. So at that stage, it wasn't hockey, it was anything. Yeah. And the first ever hockey team I trialled for, I had every single one at my club, people at my club telling me to make the team. And I missed out. And I remember inconsolably crying the entire way home. How am I supposed to play for Australia if I can't make an under 12 state team? Funnily enough, 4 weeks later, I then made the under 13s team. So in hindsight, maybe I probably could have been picked in the 12s team, but it was a lesson learned. And, we lose people to sport because they have their first failure or whatever you want to deem it, and they go, oh, it's too hard, it's not for me. Whereas those lessons and the resilience that you learn through those, I guess, hardships as a 12-year-old, I was distraught. Selection is never final until your name is on that piece of paper and you're, going to whatever tournament it might be or whatever selection it might be for. It's never final. So, I think that was a very tough lesson to learn as a little, young girl aspiring to be an elite athlete.
What kept you going?
I loved it. Yeah. I love sport. And whatever sport it was, I just loved being active and, playing with my friends. And
there's the book I read, Grit.
Oh, I love it.
You've read it?
Yeah,
awesome. The passion and resilience. And then, if you say no, but then if you love it enough, you're going to keep going no matter what. Well, not matter what, but there's obviously a time when things go away, but passion and resilience are the two kind of key things if you know you're in the right area. Yeah. They're the two. It's interesting. That book it's a bit dense, but I thought there's definitely key things I took out of it. So if anyone's listening,
put it in the show notes.
in the show notes. And I keep getting my brother gives me a hard time because I used to say a link in the description below, but I couldn't say it. It wouldn't come out properly in my mouth. And my brother every time, don't just say it properly.
That's so good.
Link in the show notes. So I've gone to say that now.
Perfect. Good. Have you read Atomic Habits?
No.
That's a very good book. I've read it once. I'm now rereading it a second
time. Oh, really?
Time.
What are the key takeaways?
Just that your habit it should be easy to be formed. So, saying you want to do 100 push-ups every day, let's take that as an example, is a hard habit to stick to. You might do it for day 1 and 2, 3, 4, but after a while, you're probably not going to do it. Whereas make your habits, something really, really easy to start with. If you improve 1% every day, it's pretty powerful. And then the other thing I took from it is the habit stacking. So every morning I brush my teeth and every night I brush my teeth. So rather than going, then let's use the 100 push-ups a day, rather than going, I'm going to do 100 push-ups a day and just that's it. I'm going to do 100 push-ups, or I'm going to do 50 push-ups in the morning after I brush my teeth. I'm going to do 50 push-ups in the morning, in the evening when I brush my teeth. Okay. I'm probably more likely to do these 100 push-ups, which is a hard habit to do every single day because I've stacked it on top. And then after that, it's okay, I want to meditate for a minute a day. So I'm going to brush my teeth. I'm then going to do my 50 push-ups and I'm going to meditate. And all of a sudden you've stacked it. It's like in the morning you wake up, go to the bathroom, have a coffee, eat breakfast, leave the house. Oh, wow, I've now got a habit and it's all stacked and that's what I do every morning.
That's interesting. Do you find it as well, like you do, it's like it makes it a routine? Do you find those, if something happens, say, I don't know, something might happen that you can't help, but you have to change your routine, you feel like you're out of whack?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Routines are so powerful. Yeah. Both negatively and positively.
I feel like negatively affects me more. Like I get out of whack and then I'm like, oh, screw it. It's so hard. But I like that the habit stacking is an interesting one as well. Anything else? What other books you got?
Oh, gosh. The Happiest Man on Earth, completely different topic. Yeah. Eddie Jaku, he's 100 and something, lives in Sydney, works at the Holocaust Museum, I believe, in Sydney.
Still works?
Yeah, it still works. Yeah, that's incredible. So it's a really, really short book. You could finish it in a day. All right. Otherwise, you could finish it in a week easily enough. I've passed it on to lots of people.
What does he go over?
What was that? Sorry.
What does he go over?
Just his journey, and that his life is incredible. Like, he's had so much hardship and so much struggle and so many things that shouldn't make him happy, yet he's happy and he's so thankful for the lessons and things that he went through. He almost died. He shouldn't be alive. Yeah. But yeah, it was a really powerful book, especially if you're in a time of your life where maybe you're in a bit of, you're struggling or you have had a few bit of a run go against you for a period of time, just to read this and put it in perspective that, hey, that your car broke down this morning and that, I don't know, you broke up with someone and you had a fight with your friend is not the end of the world. Like, this guy survived war and a war that he shouldn't have survived, which is really good. So I really like that one. And then the Resilience Project.
Yeah.
It's another really good one.
I've heard about that one.
Yeah, Hugh's awesome, and all the stuff he does with GEM, which is gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. A really, really practical way to implement different aspects into your life. He tells his story, which is a pretty remarkable one, some of his challenges. But yeah, and they have all forms of, they have a podcast too. So yeah.
I think one of the, was it the Resilience Project?
Resilience Project,
I think one of the, I think someone has mentioned that podcast on here before as well.
Yeah. They just did one with Ben Crow the other day, which, if you don't know Ben, another amazing person in kind of the world of, I guess, helping athletes find their true self and harness their best performance, among many other things. I don't want to sell him short, but yeah, his episode, we actually have a podcast group rather than a book club. It's a podcast group.
Oh, that's really good.
Which is really cool. And listen to that as our first episode. And there are so many gems from that episode.
That's a good idea, because a few of the guys at the footy club, we all just kind of, we don't have a group, but we kind of just chat about which ones we listen to and kind of, that's a good idea to start off a little huddle group and just start sharing them over huddle. Yeah. That's a good idea, because it's all about being connected as a team. And there's also, like, you're the big team, but then you've got little fractions of the team that, people can be a part of. And then do you find that difficult as well, being part of a HockeyRoos, and then you've all come from different areas of Australia, and then you get lumped together and you kind of also like get to know each other? How did it go about for you learning or getting into that space?
Yeah, it's really hard, especially when I was fortunate when I first moved to Perth for my first ever senior squad. I'd already debuted, so I'd played a few times. So I knew a lot of the girls through junior stuff. And then from there, I also was fortunate in the regard that I played every single game of my first year in the squad. Wow. Which, I mean, I was fortunate to do so. There was injuries, there was athletes who were being rested, and had it been another scenario, I may not have, but I'm so thankful for that experience. But that made it easier. Being away as a group overseas, overseas travel is very foreign right now. But at the time, you got to spend time with these people that I knew of and I had looked up to for so long, but now I actually got to, live day in, day out with them. So you build those connections and those relationships. But yeah, it can be really hard, and a lot of girls struggle with it, especially because we are centralized. So it's not only that you've got to get to know everyone in the team. And, we do a very good job of that these days as the HockeyRoos, to be very inclusive and open and welcoming and make people feel like it is a home. You move away from your family. Like, my family is a 4.5-hour flight to Melbourne, which I can't get home to on a weekend because we've got club hockey. Or if I do, I get to spend a day with them, and then with COVID restrictions, it's too risky anyway currently. So, it's not only the fact of not knowing the group here, it's also the fact of how far you are away from your family.
Being separated from your family. Yeah. That's a big one. I had a bit of experience with that as well, because I'm from Adelaide as well.
Right. Okay.
Then I ended up going home over the whole COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
But then coming back, I wasn't able, my partner Casey, she was obviously still over there. She wasn't here at the time. Okay. And I didn't get to see anyone for 6 to 7 months until we were able to open the borders. And there was a time where we were almost about to open the border, but then Adelaide had a few, and then it got shut down again, and I was sitting there going, oh, this is struggle. So I was able to get home for Christmas, so I was able to sort of. So how, is there anything, like, if a new player gets into the squad and they've come from Melbourne, Victoria, I should say, do they get put into like little groups? Is it like almost, we have like a little subgroup of 8 kind of players in a group, and they kind of like not mentor, but kind of get looked up. They go out to dinners together. They do like the revision, all that sort of stuff together. Is there something similar?
Yeah, probably less so when I moved over, but it's getting better, and there's more focus on it. I moved in with a family, which I would recommend every athlete doing. I was 23 at the time. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 18, you could be 25 or 6. I think if you're moving out of home for the first time and across the country, you probably should be with a family.
Oh, wow. That was your first time even moving out of home?
I've lived in the same house, in my same bedroom for 23 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was finishing my study, and that's kind of at home. I wasn't going to move out of home until I'd finished my study, and then obviously the HockeyRoos came calling, and that's when I moved to Perth. But I think we take it as a responsibility for each and every one of us as the group these days to invite people for coffee or catch up outside of hockey or a dinner, or even just checking in. It goes a long way. And when people came up to me in my first year and were like, how are you actually going? Like, how are you coping? not in a negative way, but just, actually wanting to listen to that response rather than the classic, oh, hey, how are you? And you don't even listen to what I've said. I might say I'm terrible, or I really miss home, or I'm really homesick. Actually checking in with that person and seeing how they're going and how they're coping. And I think it's something the AFL system does quite well, because typically the draftees are 18 and they move with the family, and they're quite well supported. But it's something that hockey is continuing to develop, and I hope they continue to put more time and energy into in the years to come.
Do you feel like you were 23 years old at the time, do you feel like that kind of being a little bit more mature helped you out coming over? Like you obviously be more independent and you knew what you kind of had to do, I guess?
Yeah, massive difference. Yeah. Like I think some athletes will move over at 18, and we shouldn't stop them moving over at 18.
No, yeah.
But you are immature as an 18-year-old. Like a lot of people can't cook, they can't clean. Like even when I remember when I first arrived, my first day, the family that I was staying with was actually away at the time. And I arrived at the house, which was pre-planned and fine. Yeah. And I was like, where's the supermarket? Like, I know you can put it into Google Maps, but it's something that I'd lived in the same house, so I knew where that was. I knew where you just don't think about those kind of things. And once, I found my feet fine and I was okay. But I mean, I'm a very organized person, and that maturity probably came as well as being a little bit older. But just knowing that, if training starts at 6, you don't get there at 6. You get there earlier. And, you shouldn't be racing off to something, and you need to communicate. If you're unwell, you don't just not rock up to training. Like, those kind of little bits and pieces that I look at now, I'm like, well, of course, that's just common sense and knowledge, but it actually isn't a lot if you haven't been in a program and you haven't had requirements on you and expectation on you in a VIS or program like that.
Yeah, and it goes the other way too. As a coach as well, you kind of take for granted that you've been old enough now, you get up, you have these responsibilities that you do yourself naturally, but when you're coaching younger kids that don't know these things, or they're 18, they might rock up 10 minutes late, but the expectation is that you're actually here 5 minutes before, not on 6 o'clock.
Nah, you're late. If you're not 5 minutes early, you're late.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
But then we'll have that issue all the time with the guys, and then I forgot.
Yeah. How did you forget? Every Wednesday we train at whatever time it might be. Like,
and it might be sometimes you get like a random message like, "Oh, do we start gym at 4:30 on a Monday?" I'm like, for the last 12 weeks we've started at 4 o'clock. Why is it 4:30?
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Yes.
So when did you decide that hockey was it? Like I'm now deciding I'm going down the hockey pathway.
Yeah, so I played cricket for Victoria up until I was about 16, 17, and it probably coincided with starting to become unwell that I had to then make that decision. So that decision was probably forced earlier than I would have liked. I would have loved to have been a dual athlete for longer, and it's still something that I would consider going back to in the future. Playing cricket, yeah. So if anyone's listening and they want to reach out and give me a contract in the future, no, I'm kidding.
Batter, bowler.
Yeah, all rounder. Yes. I can hit a cricket ball. We actually played last year before COVID lockdown in a bushfires fundraiser game on the Wacker, which was really cool. So, I jokingly say to my partner, I play now on the G and the Wacker. And he plays Premier Cricket, so he's very, very jealous of that. Nice. But yeah, so that was, I guess, my decision was forced earlier than I would have liked it to be. But I think even I look back, and even at under 15 level, I remember people coming in, or 13 level, speaking to us and going, only one person from this state team may make it, will make it. And when you look back, you're like, me and my best friend, who I've known since we were 6 or 7 years old, she's a year older than me. We both play in the HockeyRoos together now, which is pretty cool. So we're both in that same team, and we've now made it on. So it's like, we beat that stat. But more often than not, in most state teams, there's probably only one. And I used to think, I was never really, when I was top age, I was one of the better ones, but I was never stand out the best, or I don't think I ever was stand out the best athlete in that group. And so I was like, could that be me? And I guess, from quite a young age, hockey was what I was aspiring to follow, along with cricket on the side. It's been kind of something that's been part of my life.
Hockey and cricket obviously separate in terms of winter's hockey.
Yes,
which so you're able to balance it out.
And I think, to be honest, cricket made me a better hockey player. I play post in a penalty corner defence, and that my skills come from cricket. And the way I hit the ball and the way I do certain things, I trap the ball very well, and I will get random balls that a lot of other people won't trap because I've got those cricket skills. So I think I'm very much against specialising in a sport as a kid. Play every single sport. If any kids are listening, play as many sports as you possibly can because you'll learn something from every single one of them. So I wanted to play both sports for as long as I could.
I find it fascinating how you can take one sport, like even because a kid, like you would have known cricket and hockey, you can transfer the skills, get transferred across, but you look back at it now and it's like the ability of just playing and getting your body to do different things helps just be a better athlete in general because you have more dynamic. You can do different things. You're not just pinned into doing one sport or one kind of motion, I guess. Yeah. I love any kids who do like gymnastics really young. Like if they do it young and you kind of get them as a strength and conditioning coach when they're older, they have a really good movement pattern. You can, movement pattern as well, movement profile as well. They can do lots of different things as well as I think gymnastics and martial arts are really big. Okay. Yeah. Just martial arts in terms of like you got lots of kick, lots of single leg stability because they have to stay on one kick and
of course.
And then you got rotation ability, like lots of core strength as well, lots of sit-ups and this sort of stuff, but the ability to rotate through, use your legs to rotate through your hips and come across with your shoulders and your arms is really big.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. When I have kids, I'll make sure they're doing gymnastics and martial arts.
They're the big ones.
Yeah, interesting.
So, once you decided to go hockey, was it straight into the VIS?
Yeah.
Were you already in that beforehand?
No. So I got picked in the VIS in year 12. So when I had chronic fatigue, so 2013.
Oh, wow.
But I was in the VIS for much longer than many other athletes. I was in it 2013 to 2018. Most other athletes who'd been in the same time as me had already moved through and progressed.
Yeah. Some time. Or a bit longer than that. 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And was on the cusp. I felt like I was on the cusp for a period of time, up and down at different spots. But majority, so I went to Junior World Cup in 2016 and we came third. So the best performance that we've had in an extended period of time as an Australian team, which is really, really cool. And we've got a really exciting group. But most of those other, I guess, athletes had either debuted or a part of the HockeyRoos squad.
Oh, cool.
And have been for much longer than me.
So a bit younger and you got into the VIS. Did it feel like a bit intimidating? Because I guess if you didn't know going into it how much they place, how much the kind of expectation is put on you, like in terms of like training, you got your psych, you got your nutritionist, you got coach, you need to see vision, you need to be kind of proactive in what you're watching and what you're doing outside of hockey as well? Yeah,
I think I was probably quite fortunate, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm a very professional person, always have been, and I probably was, fortunate to be exposed to that when under 15s, under 18s with older athletes who were already in the VIS. Okay. So I think I already had an idea as to what was expected of me, maybe not to the level that was expected, and maybe I didn't get it right every time. We don't always get it right every time, definitely not. But I think I knew what was expected of me. And I think the hard thing for me was often that I was doing what was expected and needed at that level. I don't really like other people's expectations, kind of full stop. I think they can be detrimental. But I was able to manage all those different aspects of the VIS. I think that was what was frustrating, is that I was managing all those kind of things, but then, I wasn't being picked at the next level. So what did I have to do to crack the next level? For me, it wasn't the professionalism. My professionalism has never been questioned.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas I'd say I look at other athletes and I'm like, come on, just turn up to training on time and, get the nutrition right, get all these aspects right, and your talent and skill will hold you in really good stead. Whereas I was doing lots of things right, but my body was not taking care of me with my chronic and among other health issues that I had.
Yeah. Apart from that aside, what else was challenging? Like what challenged you apart from that kind of period?
I then got glandular fever. Yep. That's what it's called. So I had that. I also had a massive issue with, I guess, my skin folds. So in terms of, I was barely eating, and I preface this with a bit of a warning: don't not eat, don't feel, don't listen. I guess don't take on board what I've said and think it works, because it didn't work. So I cut my nutrition as not low as I could, but very, very low, under the guidance of staff members, because we were trying to get my skin folds down, and instead I put on more weight.
Instead you put on more weight.
Yeah. So I basically, on reflection, red S didn't exist then, but I had reds. my RMR or BMR, the resting metabolic rate, was like most people's. You might be better at knowing exactly what they are. I think often people are at 800 calories a day. Is that correct?
Oh, I have no idea.
Let's say most people are at 800 calories and as a human not exercising, and I was exercising and mine was like in the high 400s, low 500s. So I was barely burning through anything because I had cut my food so much, my body basically went, from my understanding, into survival. Like literally, like I'm holding on to anything you feed me.
So what test did they do to figure that out?
Yeah, so similar to a VO2 max test when you've got all like you're fully attached. I would have all the attachments, but I'd be lying on a bed. I'd just woken up in the morning, and they would like monitor my breathing basically.
Yeah. So how long were you lying? Was it a whole night?
No, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Okay. Yeah, so it was early days. This was like 2015, 16. So I did some at the AIS and then the VIS got on board too, which was really cool. Had plenty of DEXA scans as well. And yeah, it was a really awful time because again, as I think I said earlier, the professionalism for me was something that came naturally. But yeah, I was being so professional. I felt like I was doing everything I could and but my body wasn't taken care of.
It must have been incredibly frustrating.
Oh, I can't even explain. And then when I had people willing to commentate and provide commentary who weren't professionally, this is not at the VIS, but outside, provide commentary on what was going on, even though that they weren't professionally trained in that area, was, pretty awful. And to be honest, I am so thankful and fortunate that I had the dietitian nutritionist that I had at the VIS to provide a sounding board and to be that person that would back me up and that would support me. And, you know, I would go in to have my skin folds done and I'd go see her on a weekly basis. Didn't have my skin folds done on a weekly basis, but I would see her very, very frequently and be in tears pretty much every single time because it was like, why isn't it working? Like I'm doing everything, not anger at her, but like I'm doing everything you're saying. I'm following, you know, if you want to get fitter, go run, you know, go to a conditioning, you're probably going to get fitter. But I was doing everything I should have done and needed to do, and I wasn't seeing any change. I was just getting worse.
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah. Because, no matter – because you're doing everything right and this wasn't happening. So how did that eventually subside, and was it just something that clicked or –
Yeah, so I think it was interrelated with my chronic. So that would have obviously slowed down, I guess, everything. And, I mean, we've seen more and more with Red S these days that if you eat less and less, how it can negatively impact. It doesn't positively impact your performance. It negatively impacts your performance. And I basically had to shock my metabolism. So I would increase my amount of food each day by like...
Each day?
Yeah. But like very, very...
Yeah,
like,
but small,
each day for a week, let's say. So I would eat...
okay,
like an extra 100... kilojoules, which is tiny. That's nothing. It's like a couple of almonds a day. So I'd have a couple of extra almonds. That's how I used to explain it to people, a day for that entire week. And then the next week we'd go, rather than having 3 almonds, I'd have 5 each day for that week and then slowly and slowly and slowly and slowly. And it's something I'll forever manage. I think my metabolism isn't quick. It's not as quick as other athletes. I can't just eat whatever I want. I have to be really, really meticulous with what I consume. But that's my challenge. I don't typically touch wood. I don't get injured. I haven't been really injured. Oh, nice. I get knocks. I get hit. As a defender, that's pretty common. But yeah, I haven't had many injuries, which is very fortunate. But I've just had other health struggles and challenges.
That's in the bodybuilding circle, that kind of what you mentioned, the shock in the metabolism is what they use that as a reverse dieting. So once they go to once they've dieted down and they've competed in a competition, they've done their posing, that sort of stuff. They usually take a day and they can, they have the hamburgers, they'll do whatever they starve themselves for. But usually they do post, so about 6 weeks post, they will go to like a reverse diet. They'll incrementally increase their calorie input over the 6 weeks period. And then what they usually see is the first 2 to 3 weeks, they actually look better than when they were on the night of the competition because their body's being fed food and they're starving and they just burn through it so quickly. So it's also a way to, if bodybuilders who've done it poorly, they go and they just binge out for 3 or 4 weeks, and then because their body's in survival mode, they just stack on a massive amount of weight of fat because they're just storing it because they know they're going to have to go into this survival mode. Yeah. So this whole reverse dieting is a way of kind of protecting your metabolism and not blowing out
Right, there you go.
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen you wearing a Whoop strap.
I am. I'm wearing my Whoop.
Yeah. Do you, do you find that that's a good way to kind of stay accountable to your recovery, to what you're eating? As well, and it's a good way to kind of look at it.
Yeah,
well.
I think it's very accurate. I think it's more accurate than my Garmin, resting heart rate wise, and HRV. That's right.
Yeah, heart rate variability.
Yeah. As well as your sleep. I find your Garmin sleep isn't super accurate, whereas this is like bang on. And interestingly, we actually had our first Pfizer jab on Monday because any Olympic hopeful is getting them. And my resting heart rate, is normally in the low 40s, and my HRV is usually I find it obviously varies, but let's go 140 to 160. And my heart rate was low 50s, and my HRV was
down
really low. Yeah. So like it was this trend. Yeah. So I felt okay from the Pfizer jab, and I think it's number 2 that's supposed to knock you around more.
Interesting.
But clearly my internal like inside of me was being like, you aren't okay. And a lot of other girls reported felt like they had their heart beating out of their chest. And it impacted different people.
Did your recovery score go down as well?
Massive. Yeah, my recovery on Tuesday and Wednesday was red, and I haven't had it red. I've worn it for now maybe 3 months, and I was sleeping properly, but clearly my body was just under the pump.
So those who don't know, Whoop strap just kind of you wear it as it's a wearable strap, and it takes into account heart rate and heart rate variability, all sort of different metrics, and takes into account how much you train, your activity level, and then spits out a recovery score and how well you sleep as well, and spits out a recovery score. And then based off that recovery score, it gives you a target of strain, how activity you should do for that day. That's kind of correct.
Yeah, that's
and then
good.
And then you can kind of go above that score and it's overreaching, but then that will diminish your recovery the next day because obviously your body isn't able to recover. And then it gives you a good little bit of guidance with sleep, recommended amount of sleep you should get based off your activity for that day. I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. It's kind of kept me a little bit more accountable on my own training. But I find it funny, a little bit funny, that we have to kind of go as a kind of a society to wear these things and make kind of exercise a game. It kind of gamifies that a little bit. I think Whoop is a little bit less like that than something like a Fitbit or something that, you need to reach 12,000 steps or that sort of stuff. But I love it. I think it's really good for me because I kind of look at it and, really bit health scientists and that sort of stuff. So we can look at it and go, okay, we can analyze it a little bit better than someone who doesn't. But I think it's really good. I've had one of my worst recoveries. I think I've gotten down to 5% recovery.
Jeez.
I don't know why. I
right.
must have had I didn't have a good sleep. Didn't eat well that day.
Yeah.
I think I trained pretty hard the day before that. I just had a shocker.
Yeah,
but I use the journal function.
Yeah, which is great.
As well, which I love. And talking about stacking habits, I never did it for the first couple of months.
Okay.
And then I always did it because I ended up started with, because when I wake up, I don't set the sleep. I just kind of let it auto-detect sleep. And then when I wake up, I always press auto-detect. When I wake up, open the app and I'll go, detect the sleep. And then as soon as it comes up, it gives them a notification when it's ready, my recovery is ready to view. And then it automatically, the journal pops up and I put in what I ate. Or was it you can get in how many, the few of them you can put like anti-inflammatories, you can do how much caffeine, did you wear your blue light blockers, all this sort of stuff. You can kind of pick what you want in your journal. And talk about, I've been doing the last couple of months, been eating a majority a meat-based diet. So a little bit of some pumpkin, some carrots, some like low-level sort of stuff, but high-fat, high-protein-based diet. And the last 50 days, I put it in my journal, my REM sleep has increased by 20 minutes.
Wow.
There you go. So that's a little bit of stats that gives out there. Yeah.
Cool.
Which obviously increases recovery and obviously your fitness as well because you're recovering better, you can train harder.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's why I love it for that reason.
Yeah. And I mean, I've always wanted to journal, and it's something that I find I don't do because I don't have a good, habit and way to stack it. And that thing that pops up, it's like if you do go out of it, if anyone who uses a Whoop, it's like that guilt trip of like, I can't be bothered today. It's like, no, you know what? Just spend. It doesn't have to be, an essay. It can be anything. It can be, what you eat or how you felt or you've had a really good day or a really poor day. And I think it's a really good reminder to get your journaling in, which is good.
My your trainings, what is your activity? Do you set it for when you do your trainings?
It auto detects.
Auto detects it, yeah. What's kind of the highest strain you've had?
I think the highest you can get to is 21,
highest
isn't
you can
it?
do 21, yeah. But that's like your heart rate has to be up for the whole 24
the entire
hours.
day. They did an April Fool's joke, and I didn't understand it, and then I read more into it. I was like, oh, that's a joke. I didn't get it. I was on with social media. I reckon I've hit 18 a fair few times, and then I reckon in one session and 19. But then some days, like,
it's offset.
I reckon Darwin we were getting pretty high, and in Perth summer as well. Like, it's pretty warm. I have never worn it for a pre-season, and I would love to know how high it would get through a pre-season, because some of our running sessions we did, Olympics take 1 and now take 2 were pretty awful. Yeah. So
I've worn it for one of our Muay Thai sparring sessions for an hour. So this is an hour. The strain I had was 14 in an hour.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Because it's not so much like you get, like we were doing 3-minute rounds and then it's 30 seconds and then we're straight into the next partner. So that's tough as well. But then it's obviously a lot of it's like is mental as well, because you're trying to read what the other person's doing and then you try to act. So you're not actually active for the full 3 minutes, but it's you
still
kind of
mental load.
your mental load, and you stiffen up as well.
Yeah.
And there was a study come out, I don't know how long ago, but with chess players. And they're saying their metabolic rates are through the roof, but they don't exercise, but it's all mental exercise. Because they're trying to read on a 3 or 4 moves ahead of the other opponent.
There you go. It might take up chess.
It's difficult.
Very challenging.
I still have a bet. My brother and I have this competition. He's almost like 100 and I've gotten 1, but he refuses to. He doesn't give me that one.
There you go. Wow, interesting. You have to just study up.
It's so hard. Have you played much chess?
No.
It's so hard to read.
Terrible. I don't even know which way you can move the certain ones, and I don't even know the pieces' names.
I love how difficult. I just love things that are hard. I love things that are hard, and it's so difficult. And hopefully he's not listening, but almost in awe of how good he knows what I'm doing before I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
that's just amazing.
Yeah. And you see that on a sporting field as well, when you see those players that read the game so well, and you're thinking you're gonna pass it there and they're already there, and you're like, oh, wow, like, have you preempted that? Have you watched so much footage? And that's what I think it'll be interesting coming back into international competition these days, is we haven't seen other teams and no one's seen us. And I think it's a real hidden advantage that we have as an Australian population. We'll play New Zealand before the Olympics, and that's probably it. So, we may have changed things, we may not have changed things, and hopefully we can, shock some teams and give them a surprise. And I'm sure other teams will shock us too with things that they do. But I think it's really exciting. That preparation is very different. It's not ideal, but there's a positive from every situation, and coming in.
It's definitely good that you can be able to get some practice up against New Zealand as well, because there's only so hard you can go against each other at trainings, right? Yeah. You don't want to go out and hurt. Well, you don't go out to hurt the opposition, but you want to be competitive, right? Yeah. And hockey I worked in it for year and a half. It's not a contact, but it's contact, right? You still bump, and you still you're diving. And it's only so much of that you can do with each other, right? Yeah, and I think we found as well, we spent so much time training against each other. You kind of know what the other person's going to do, even though you don't. And not every time you get it right, but you know how someone moves, you know how they carry the ball, and you come up against an international team, against a player you haven't seen, and you're like, oh wow, that was different. Like, it might be a bit unorthodox, but hey, it works. So can I implement that into my game? Or I need to make sure that I just actually watch the ball, as it's being played, not, preempting something and then getting it wrong. Have you done that in your own experience? Like, if you're seeing a player and then you've kind of gone, I'm doing that. Was there multiple players, or did you have one kind of player that you're like, wow?
I think it comes different bits and pieces. Like, even in training these days, you watch someone, the way they carry the ball, and as a defender, we spend a lot of time passing the ball. We don't run with the ball heaps. And so I've watched some of our best ball runners and go, I'm never going to run the ball as well as they do, but how can I slightly change the way I run the ball that can help me, ever so slightly eliminate an extra player, or just be in a better position to pass. And even defensively watching, obviously the Europeans have played a little bit against each other, and they're very, I think, quite defensive in the way they play. Classic soccer, similar. They just pass the ball around the back all day. They're very happy to. And I think at times as an Australian team, we can do more of that. Again, that's my defensive mindset coming into the game. We just hold on to the ball and make the other team run. But adding in little fakes over the ball, so shaping to pass one way. It seems silly, but it can give you half a second if the person reacts to the left and then you pass to the right, rather than just passing to the right and then they can preempt it that way. So yeah, little, I think, bits. I think the more sport you watch, I've watched a lot of netball as well. I never played netball. It's one kind of sport I didn't play, but watching the way they defend and how they get body and their positioning between athletes, not that necessarily it can be replicated directly into hockey, but there's aspects we can take in the way they get body, the way they are open, those kind of what we call flat triangles. Yeah, I think there's things you can learn from every sport. Even, I again watch footy. I literally watch sport all day, every day if I could. But yeah, immersing yourself and exposing yourself to, the more sport you can, the more games, the better.
I know that coaches go, I think a few of coaches that I spoke to, they've gone and watched a few hockey trainings. So I think they say the midfield, I think it's their defense, they say they can use like the tactics like pressing, and the thing is the triangle as well, they take that and they use it in their midfield structures as well to try to get the way through and kick out.
Yeah, I feel like a hockey press has been used somewhere recently, and I feel like it's AFL.
Yeah, pressing is big in AFL now.
I think it got referenced somewhere the other day, or maybe even on the TV, and I was like, oh, there you go, that's interesting. So something that we've always done and we do very kind of without, not thinking, of course we're thinking when we do it, but...
Is it a team press? Like as soon as one goes, everyone has to... Yeah. Because you have to... Yeah. If you leave your person to go up, you have to kind of... Everyone has to.
You can't just let the striker... Well, sometimes we laughingly let the striker go and go, good luck. But no, more often than not, if one goes, we all go and we go as a group. But then also like zonal wise, and I mean, I'm a Hawthorn supporter, and like Clarko's cluster or whatever it used to be called back in
Clarko's
08.
cluster.
Yeah.
That's in that book, my Game Changer book.
There you go.
It's actually in there.
Yeah.
The structure.
Yeah, awesome. So, that was made famous and it was good for a year. And then after that, the Hawks weren't great. So we had to, change it up again. But we've added more and more zonal into our game as well. And I think the way the game changes, if you look at the men's hockey compared to women's hockey, we full press because people don't have the ability to overhead at 75 metres. In the boys' game, typically they fall away, because their ability to overhead it, like, which if you don't know hockey is throw the ball in the air, 75 metres is so easy, and then they're all of a sudden out creating goal scoring opportunities. So even between the two games, there's completely different structures and skills and elements that are used.
As a defender, what kind of, or like your profile, is it your athleticism or is it your skill of hockey that's kind of gotten you to where you are?
I'm not quick. Okay. So, and I've had to work really hard on my fitness. Probably, and not even I don't think I'm super skillful or talented. I've got very good hand-eye coordination. I read the game very, very well.
The IQ.
Yeah. I communicate well, and I guess I'm an on-field leader. So I've made up for areas, and I think I'll forever be told that I'm not quick enough. But like, that's fine. You can tell me I'm not quick enough, but I'll prove to you that I'm not out of position, and I'll make up for it in other ways. That one. Yeah.
Because a lot of players are kind of in that category of not quick enough, but they don't not look quick. Does that make sense? You can kind of read the game and you can kind of get into position quicker than someone else who's actually really fast.
Yeah, Sam Mitchell. He from Hawthorn, barely got picked up. He got picked up after playing at Box Hill for years, I think, on games anyway. He was never super quick. Played how many other games he played for Hawthorn, multiple premiership player. And I think, being told you're not at something, whether it's not quick enough, fit enough, whatever, I think it makes you work harder. If you're told you're awesome and you have nothing to improve, it's pretty challenging to then motivate yourself to get better. I think it'll be forever a challenge. Right. And I'll get told it frequently, and that's fine. I've come to terms with it. I'm not going to be a 100-metre sprinter. I don't need to be a 100-metre sprinter.
No, you don't. The challenge is you've got weaknesses and you've got strengths, right? Mm-hmm. Do you constantly work on your strengths, or do you split it up and you kind of want to make your weaknesses a bit better so they're kind of balanced? But would you rather be really strengths up really high and have your weaknesses down here, or do you want to kind of be lower that strength down and bring the weakness up?
If you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said I leave my strengths alone and just work on my weaknesses. You ask me now, and it's both. My strengths need to be better because that's what I'm good at. And I don't go out into a game thinking I'm not quick, I'm slow. Because if I do that, well, I'm probably not going to perform very well. Whereas what am I good at? What do I know that is my best, and what do I bring to this group? Because I might not be quick, but I read the game and I can lead and I can communicate on the field better than another defender. And they are quick and they have an attribute that, I don't have. For me, it's both. It's strengthening your strengths and making them world class, but then, constantly topping up and working on your weaknesses. And you can do that in different forms. It's not just necessarily out in the hockey field. It's, learning how to combat your weaknesses in a different way as well.
Yeah. Right.
Learning and reading and listening to podcasts, reading books of other athletes who you look at and you're like, oh gosh, you had it so easy. But really, they're also sitting in meetings and being told that they're not this, they're not that, they're not whatever. The best player in the world, they might be the best player in the world. They still have a weakness. And obviously their strengths are incredibly good, which outweigh their weaknesses. But I think sometimes people, get feedback and they get really disheartened because they're like, oh, well, it's just me being told that I'm not good at this. But no, everyone's getting feedback constantly in life or in sport that they're not good enough at something and they need to improve it.
With feedback, do you feel like sometimes people kind of perceive feedback and say, oh, we always want positive feedback. And then when they do kind of get a negative feedback, they take it to heart almost too much and they let it affect them a lot. But we shouldn't really be classified as positive and negative feedback. Feedback is feedback,
constructive,
right? Yeah.
I think, not to blame younger generations, but I think the whole participation award, everyone's a winner, is a really bad thing for society. I don't think people should be excluded. I don't think people should be, favoritized or whatever. But I think the participation award is negative because you then don't get given a tough message at an early age, which I think needs to be had. Again, should it be positive, negative feedback? Should it just be feedback in general? Negative feedback, as some people will perceive it, it can ruin people's career if they don't have that resilience or the ability to look at it with some perspective. For me, I say to my coaches that I get coached by or athletes that I play with, I want to be challenged. I want you to challenge me because I know I perform my best when I'm challenged. When I'm pushed outside my comfort zone and you tell me I'm not good enough, I'll prove you wrong that I'm good enough and that I will give you every single thing that I've got.
Has that always been the case?
Yeah, always. Yeah. And I don't know why, whether I learned it from mum and dad. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether at a young age someone said lots of things, you're not this, you're not that, whatever. And I was like, not screw you, but okay, well, I'll show you that I am. I'll go about it in my own unique way. I won't follow the book. I won't be the fastest person. I won't be the fittest person, but bloody hell, I'll work harder than any other one else. And if I work harder than anyone else, then that's going to set me in a pretty good position to be a great team player and to give my best that I possibly can for that team on a given day. Yeah,
it's always an interesting one. I like that because it has to come from when you're young. That doesn't it? You have to. I don't think it doesn't happen. You don't just all of a sudden wake up and say, okay, I want to be challenged more. I think it develops through age, and from a young age, you maybe it shouldn't be something that's really hard, but you've kind of been incrementally dosed as things a little bit challenging. You've achieved that. Okay, that feels good. Achievement is something that's oh wow, I want to go out and achieve something else because the feeling of being successful feels good, right?
Yeah.
I think I did karate when I was younger, and every time you get a belt, a new stripe on the belt, it's it's like a goal. It's driven learning those sort of values, and when you're young, I think it's really important for obviously whatever you do after something like that. So you go away, you get a black belt, and you kind of have this achievement, and you go, okay, well, what's next? And you enter into your career, and you're going to go, okay, what are the steps? What are the goals? Achieve that. I'm here. All right, let's go. What's the next one? And you keep kind of incrementally climbing the ladder, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of athletes transfer really well. Not everyone, but a lot of athletes transfer very well into work once they finally get their job and work out what they want to do without necessarily having gone to uni. I think every athlete should go to uni. I think that should happen, but if they don't have the opportunity, a lot of the skills and lessons they learn in a sporting sector and environment then transfer really nicely to the professional world. And when I started as a physio, I think initially and when I went through my placements, people kind of delivered feedback on eggshells. And I was like, no, just tell me. It's okay.
That's a big one.
I've been told some pretty brutal things. I'll be fine. You don't have to butter it up. I'll be okay. There's other things I can communicate really well. I've had to learn that through playing sport. So then that goes really well to my workplace when I keep going away every 2 weeks. I don't feel awkward going up to them and saying, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm going away again. It's just, look, this is what it is. I've had that conversation prior. We've set the foundation. They understand, again, I have an incredible workplace that are willing to manage my dual career. But yeah, you have those conversations to set yourself up rather than the awkward oh no, how do I tell the teacher that I now can't come to work or come to class or things like that.
That's a big one. That's so true. you have to say things to some people that you might not like to, but you have to hear it. Like, and even the same way, the other way around as well. Like if you go up to, your superior and you ask for some feedback, you go see like a mentor and you talk to him as some feedback, and then you've got that little person in your head who's always battling back. Like you always want to be combative and try to protect your own ego as such as well. If you had to was that a learning curve for you as well? Like a little bit of finding it hard to kind of listen to negative feedback a little bit?
Yeah, I think you're gonna forever have the inner critic, and you're gonna forever have that self-doubt no matter what, even though I've worked so hard on that, and it's something I really struggled with earlier on. You're forever going to, I had it on Tuesday. We had our first selection of the year and it didn't go the way I guess I was hoping or I was wanting it to go. And it was just for an internal game on Wednesday night at training. And I went to yoga that night, and you're supposed to be present in yoga and you're supposed to, pay attention to your breathing and what you're doing. And I wasn't. I was in a completely different place. My mind was going at 1,000,000 miles an hour and just thinking, and that awful self-criticism, that awful, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that, you're this, you're that, whatever. And I walked out of there and I was like, that's it. That's enough. No more. Go to bed, sleep well, get a great night's sleep, and wake up in the morning and tomorrow's a new day. And something that I did a little bit of work with Ben Crow is having a mantra or having a saying that you can say to yourself to kind of snap you out of it and to remind yourself. And it can come in all forms. It might be a mantra. It might even be positive self-talk. So as soon as my mind starts spinning, and typically I reckon from now until the Olympics, it's a mind game. We're all good hockey players, all 25 of us in the squad. Everyone has the ability. Our squad's very, very talented. Everyone has the ability to go to, the Olympics. But it's a mind game from now on. So as soon as those thoughts start to come in, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, it's no, that's enough. You are this, you are that. Like, I'm good enough. Even though I don't think I'm that quick, I'm quick enough. I'm this enough. I'm that enough. I'm strong enough. I read the game well enough. And it's that constant affirmation or positive self-talk that, a coach is not going to sit in your corner and pump your tires up all the time. You have to have that. When I walk out, hopefully, to the Olympics on the game one, when we play Spain, I don't want to be sitting there going, well, and I'm sure my brain will try to trick me going, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. It'll be, no, deep breath, in, out, yep, cool, I'm ready for this. I prepared my entire life for this. I didn't start preparing for this a month ago, didn't start preparing for this a year ago. I've been preparing since I was 10. Yeah. And over the time, I've learnt so many lessons. I've had lots of setbacks, but this is a stage, and I'm going to prove you wrong. All those people that said, you'll never make it. But I'm also going to love the moment, enjoy the moment, because this is for me. Whilst I would love to, prove those people wrong, at the same time, this is for me to prove myself right and to love every single minute of it. It's a childhood dream. And, some people's dream is to learn a musical instrument or get a job. Like, our dream of going to Olympics is pretty incredible. It happens once every 4 years. This one may not have ever happened because of COVID. Yeah. It's a really, special couple of months. And on the other side, if I find out in a month's time that I'm not going to the Olympics, that's fine, because I know I've given every single thing I possibly can. I've turned over every single stone, ticked every single box, and me bringing my best, if they don't think that is good enough for the team, I will help that team be better, as in the Olympic team be better. And that's where my drive comes from. Like, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. If I'm in that team or if I'm not in that team, I'll help our group to do that. So I
always find it fascinating. Athletes driven for an Olympic gold medal. I think it's an incredible feat, because you've had 4 years of almost constant review. Like, everyone is, you got coaches, you got everyone who's always looking at your performance. Even like you just said, it was just an internal trial game on a Wednesday night, and you get. You get a review after that, and it might not be the best, but for whatever reason, might have come in, underdone, or something might have happened beforehand. You might not have gone out and execute your game style perfectly, and then you get told the day after, no, it's not good enough. Like, we expect you to be, up top all the time. There's no room at the moment. We're going in for an Olympic games, and we got to be ready and 100% all the time.
Yeah. And we've had a new coach come on board in the last couple of months, weeks. And the first thing she said to us as a group is that I want every single person in this room to be their best come the Olympics. So we don't want 16 to be their best. We want 25 to be their best and bring their best. And again, for each individual, that's different, because if all 16 of us are bringing their best on that day one of the Olympics and the others have helped support and bring their best every other day, we're going to go a long way to winning Olympic gold medal. And I think then you can look back and whatever result happens, however it all turns out, you can be proud of what you've done.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that not a lot of athletes that don't win a gold medal get to experience, because often you look back and you go, oh, could have done this better, could have done that better, this, that, and the other. And again, you'll reflect back if you don't win a gold medal. You'll still reflect back if you win a gold medal and go, could have done this better, could have done that better. But having that contentment and being satisfied with giving it every single thing we had and giving it our best crack, which is all we can ask for of each other, and bringing our individual best to make the team collective be as best as it possibly can be.
Do you find, how do you go about keeping like your mental IQ, not mental IQ, but kind of your hockey IQ sharp? Like, do you watch a lot of footage outside? Do you get access to a lot of footage from training? Yeah,
it's awesome. We've got a software that we can access at home these days. So the benefits of technology, My Team Performance, we log on, it's pretty much up there within a couple of hours post-game. All of our games are coded, so you can go double-click on your line, your name, and watch all of your codes. And then you can watch other things, like so many other things are coded. So whether it's outlets or press or, those bits and pieces. So I spend a fair bit of time reviewing footage. More often than not, I review the room for improvement footage more than the
room for improvement.
Yeah, the positive footage, because you learn more from the areas you could have done something better. Doing something good is good. That's fine. But hey, that situation, I needed to be better that time, and how can I be better? Footage for me is a big one. Talking to other people in the training environment is a big one. It's probably something I do naturally, and actually sometimes I need to stop because I'm playing against my own teammates who are on the opposition team on the given day, and I'm giving them feedback then and there. Which I'm more than happy to do, but I wouldn't do that to the Kiwi. I'm not going to do that to Kiwis next week. I'm not going to tell you how to beat me or where you should have led. Whereas I'm quite happy in a training environment or a practice game, even on Wednesday. The front line was doing really well, but the second line wasn't pushing up. So the front line was putting pressure on us, but then we were able to get our heads up and then find a pass into our kind of midfield, and just providing that feedback to those individuals then and there, saying, actually, your second line needs to press up more. So, having those conversations, asking strikers when I mark them, what do they not like? What do they like? Typically, they don't like being pushed, and that's something we're trying to really work on, our physicality as defenders. That's always a fun, conversation to have with them when they give you a death stare when you do push them. But they're going to get that international, competition.
Exactly.
So we're hopefully preparing them as best as we possibly can. So, footage is a big one. Also, seeing something different to maybe how you remember it. You remember something one way, and then you get the footage, you're like, oh, that's not how I remembered it. But there you go. That's the benefit of having that footage, and we need to utilize it as much as we can.
And as well as your communication, have you had to, being a male, obviously males as a kind of general consensus aren't the best communicators. So I've done a bit of work with coaching and being able to communicate effectively. Is that communicating for you come naturally? Have you had to kind of work on it a little bit, being younger now, being a little bit older, and now when you talk to younger people, you can, from your experience, take a route of being able to better prepare someone like that?
Yeah, I think I've always spoken on the field. I've always been a defender, so I've always had to set up the field. So that's something that comes really naturally. Even on my first debut tour, I wasn't afraid of telling someone who played plenty more times than me they needed to step left. Well, they needed to make it, not in a negative way, more I'm going to help you. If I communicate better, you're going to be better for it. You'll be in a better position. So on-field communication has always been something that's been easy for me. Off-field communication, always fine when you're a younger member of the team. I find getting on with people older than me very, very easy. The one thing I probably have had to work on more so recently at a VIS level when I was a leader in that group is understanding that people look at the world differently to me. And not that I don't understand it, because I do understand it, but I don't understand when people don't want to work hard or why come if you're going to fluff around. And I have had to learn that people don't have the same drive or work ethic as me, and that's fine, and that's their way to approach it, but to accept them as they are. And I think I probably always went in with the approach of, well, I wanted to make them better. I saw all this potential in them. I wanted to help them, and maybe I went in a bit too hot sometimes and, demanded more of them in a positive way, whereas actually I just needed to be there to support them and be a sounding board and understand that, hey, they're not going to do the extras. That's just them as a person, no matter how many times I tell them. So I have a very close and positive relationship with our VIS coach, and she's a sounding board for, goes both ways. But that's been a really good discussion to have, because, I mean, I would love to be a leader, whether it's acknowledged leader or a non-acknowledged leader. I'll forever lead in any environment that I'm in. And yeah, at a HockeyRoos level one day. So if that's the case, and if I do become an acknowledged leader at HockeyRoos, or even a non-acknowledged leader, as in having a title, there'll be a time where I'm one of the more senior athletes in the group, and that time will probably come over from my experiences that I had at VIS.
Yeah.
So that's why you have those learning curves.
Yeah. I think as well, when you say, we look at, we have like younger players, and they might not train as hard, and we kind of, so someone like yourself, who's very professional, ticks all the boxes, does a lot of work, and he sees someone who's not doing a lot of work, and he kind of look and go, you make a little bit angry because you don't like to see that in yourself. Like, you're not the lazy one. You like to keep working. Not saying that person's lazy, but might not do all the work. Kind of makes you a little bit angry. Makes you a little bit more emotional, and then you got to kind of separate that. And it's like, it's just another person's way. That person goes about doing that one thing. And I think one of the biggest learning curves as a coach for me is that people have, or different players have a unique flair, what makes them good. And sometimes you don't want to change someone's personality. So someone might have a little bit, it's not like a striker, or somebody might play as like a star midfielder, might have a little bit of swagger about them. And then, they might roll into a gym session, and they're not taking it. It may look like they're not taking it seriously, but they're still there and they're still doing the work. And you can't put what you think that they should look like onto them.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's kind of a really hard battle, and it really, that's why I like coaching, because it's very fluid and there's lots of different kind of personalities that you have to work with, and you don't get along with all of them, but it's about getting the best out of them, which I like.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. A saying I've used more recently is you do you, you bring you, and you do that in your own way. I'll do it in my way. I'll be organized, and that will drive some people crazy because they're more than happy to not be organized. But yeah, as you said, embrace everyone's unique flair, everyone's uniqueness. We all have it for a reason. If we were all the same, we'd be robots, and we would be very good.
I feel that.
So yeah,
I feel like some places, some institutions get that kind of, it's hard to kind of, as a institution, you might have your own kind of values, and that you want each athlete to kind of follow and live by, but they should be kind of held accountable to those values. But how they kind of go about it, you can't change them. If they're there, they might be the best player, but they don't follow those values. You can't force them. You can't kind of make them robots, because then they're not going to enjoy doing it. And then why have them there? Yeah,
as long as they're a good person. That's my big thing. You can be I don't care how good you are, just be a good person. You need to treat people with respect, and that's probably my one non-negotiable in terms of. Yep, you do you be unique, but you, no matter how good you are, or you're the first picked or the last picked, have respect for people, treat people with respect, and value everyone's contribution.
Yeah. You kind of that respect thing when someone, let's say we're playing on the same team, and I gave you some, here at the moment might be something that you might perceive was disrespect, in terms of I was just giving you a feedback, is get to this line, get this play, we want you to be better.
Yep.
Something like that, but you kind of perceived it in a different way. Is that kind of something that comes up a bit in women's hockey?
We've been having this conversation for 3 years as a group.
Really?
As to how to deliver feedback, how to receive feedback, how to then debrief feedback.
Correct.
Because there's always going to be two opinions. Everyone is entitled to their opinion, and everyone's opinion is right on a hockey field because we all see it differently. So how do I deliver the feedback to you? How do you receive the feedback, and how do we constructively move forward? Sometimes we're not going to agree, and that is okay. But in that moment, we can't not agree and I go throw my stick or walk off the field. We have to agree and get on with the job. So for us, we've got to the point where feedback on the field, it will be direct. At times, it'll come across. Sometimes it can be out of line, so we've also got to pull people up when it is out of line, but that is done afterwards. At the end of the day, feedback on the field, communication on the field should be delivered in a way that's better for making everyone better. And then post the game, it's me coming up to you and going, and I happened at training this morning, someone said something to me and I just had a moment and just froze, and I went up to her and she didn't even notice I froze. And I said to her, I was like, oh, really sorry for kind of death staring you back. She's like, I didn't even notice. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good. That's fine. And so, just having that ability to approach someone and have that conversation and just to touch base and clear the air if needed.
Yeah.
Because I think if you let it fester, especially I don't like to separate men and women, but especially in a female setting, if you let something fester, you let it boil over, it just gets out of control. You're better off dealing with it then and there. It might be an awkward conversation. It might be a hard conversation. You might not get an answer from it, but at least the communication channels stay open, because as soon as someone's communication channel shut down, receiver or 100%. Giver, you're done for.
Yeah, I've seen it multiple times, not just here, but back in Adelaide. As soon as someone shuts down, it all just crumbles from within, doesn't it? Like it's just goes south quick.
Yeah,
everyone gets lost.
Yeah. Yeah, people second guess their decisions and speaking up.
Yes,
and then all of a sudden that doesn't create a good culture. It's so detrimental. Everyone deserves the right to have their voice in any setting. Everyone deserves to be listened to and respected. You don't have to agree with them every single time, but we have to provide people the chance to express their opinion and their thoughts and not be dismissed.
In terms of the culture, how has that kind of shaped over your time?
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
If you followed, I guess, the HockeyRoos recently, we have, as I touched on before, we have a new coach, and there's been a fair bit of drama kind of on the external in the last couple of months and year or so. But as a group right now, we are in an incredible spot, and I'm so proud of the group for the resilience that they've shown, the growth that they've shown. This is me included, all of us. And it's been a pretty tough last kind of 6 to 12 months. I mean, COVID, yes, but among many other things. And the fact of how close the group has become, the fact that people are getting to know other athletes better than just as a teammate. You're not going to love everyone. You're not going to be your best friend, but, you need to respect them and get along with them. I'm incredibly proud of the hard conversations we've had, the endless meetings we've had to sit through. But the positive change that has happened and that has occurred. There's laughter at training. There's people positively joking around. There's people are relaxed. People are enjoying being there. And at the end of the day, if you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to be so much better for it at the end of the day. So, we had to go through a fair amount of crap, and it's been awful to get through, but we're starting to come out the other side. And I guess I don't think there'll be many internationals listening to this, so I probably can say what I want here is that I think other countries around the world have written us off as a HockeyRoos. Okay. They've seen the media, they've seen some of the decisions that have been made, and they go, well, there's no chance those group can win. And I honestly think Aussies perform their best when they're an underdog, and right now we're an underdog. And as a group, we can't wait to take it to the world stage and show them how hard we've been working and how close we've come together as a group. And whilst not necessarily the group has been fractured, but there has been divisions in the past, as there is in any group. There's always going to be divisions. There's always going to be tough conversations. Right now we're united, and I'm so bloody proud of the group and the steps they've taken forward.
That's good. It's good to hear that the culture's on the way up and it's getting better, because I think the general public likes to think that Australian sport is going to do well when we compete, we're competitive.
Yep.
I think there's been a history of success in the HockeyRoos and then the Kookaburras as well. And
last Rio, none of us, or neither the HockeyRoos or the Kookaburras, made the quarterfinals. So that was in the paper or in the media, that was a disaster. I don't think that had happened in years beforehand. I think there's a redemption story, but we also have that belief in ourselves as a group that we know what we have to do to get past that stage. But at this stage, it's cliche, but just taking it kind of, step by step.
Right.
And as it comes, and proud to and excited to show the Australian public and the rest of the world what we've got.
So were you in the squad after Rio?
No, I didn't make it. I debuted at the end of 2018 and then made the squad in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was want to know if there was anything that was said after that kind of was like how to deal with the negative press.
Yeah, not sure. Not sure exactly. It's really interesting reflecting back, because I obviously was in Australia when they performed not as well as they would have hoped, and to see the press, it was really horrific, because people. The Olympics comes around and hockey gets a profile, gets a name. We're huge. And then see the Australian public hate on the group, that 20 years earlier they had labelled the Golden Girls, like because they'd won in 96 and 2000. That's the same public. They're the same people that have done that. And, yeah, I think that was really sad to see the reaction that, you know, there's people, and not to have a crack at people sitting on their couch watching the Olympics, but, you know, you're not out there competing. You know, you haven't sacrificed or made all these good decisions in your life to get to where, you know, those girls had got to. I just think that as a population, if I don't go to the Olympics, I want to support that group that goes, and whether they win every single game or they don't win a game, like I'm going to be there to back them up and to say that, you know, that was the, you know, they did everything they possibly could to perform as well as they could.
I think that a lot of it gets lost. Like the media they put out the result of the game, but they don't know how much work and, you know, all those meetings.
The swimmers, for example, swimmers win a silver medal and it's a failure. Like it makes, and I think I understand it more and more these days. Like it makes me really sad. Like that's an incredible achievement that person, yes, they didn't win gold.
Second best there.
Yeah, literally at that point in time, they're the second best. They win a bronze medal, failure. They win a gold medal and it's still sometimes not good enough. It's like they can't get any higher than a gold medal unless they get a world record. You know what I mean? Like those kind of bits and pieces that I just go, oh, like, yeah, I would love, rather than pulling ourselves down, which we do so well as Australians, let's build each other up. Let's support each other. Because then when someone does come home with a medal, they all want to celebrate. They want to go and get a photo with that person, whether it's male or female. But then if they don't perform the next Olympics, they're going to pull them straight down. And I just don't think that's fair. We're not paid millions of dollars. We basically finish our career broke. So
that's what kind of interests me a little bit as well, because you sacrifice so much, and it's for a gold medal.
Yeah, which comes with like nothing. Like not that you'd ever sell a medal or burn it down to gold, but you know what I mean. Like we don't get any extra typically endorsements from it. We barely struggle to make it week by week, day by day. I'm not living in Cottesloe in a $2 million house. I'm struggling to pay rent every week.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating because it's, you know, it's almost like a government, like it's like a power. It's a country versus country. Like, you know, how many gold medals did your country have? You know, all this sort of stuff. It's a bit of a power play. Like the athletes who win the medals don't really get recognized. It's like a country, like the government gets, you know, all this sort of money. It's almost backwards.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
It's hard. It's hard to kind of perceive because you look at other sports like basketball, golf. The individual gets the money, and you play a good game of football. Like, you know, if you're you might be a well performing player, and you might get bonuses and this sort of stuff as well. But at Olympic, where it's bigger than almost every other sport, like it's, you know, the Olympics, you know, for everything is almost bigger, like swimming. You know, you don't really hear much in between what happens. Hockey, you don't hear much. Name all the athletics, you don't hear any of that during the year. And then every 4 years they come up and you hear about them. And then if they don't perform to what you expect, it's cutthroat
It
business.
is, yeah. So, it'll be really I'm really excited to see how Tokyo goes. I mean, in all sports, I feel like there's a fair few Australians performing incredibly well. And, I'm excited to see a new group of athletes as well as some athletes who have been around for previous Olympics, have a crack and do their best.
Has there been much talk about what it's going to look like in terms of what, if you go there, how's it all going to be set up?
Yeah, like heaps of talk. We've received a fair few what they call playbooks. So we'll be tested every day.
Every day?
Yeah, every day. I don't know, as I've had a fair few COVID tests, which is like a swab up your nose and your throat. I don't know the extent of what kind of tests they'll do, because obviously they've got to come back straight away. So it might just be like a throat swab.
Yep.
If you then test positive, you'll be like removed to like a Medi hotel, I believe, and spend a period of time in there. Masks are obviously compulsory. We'll all be, or if you choose to be immunised or vaccinated, you will have that before you go. And then I think they just announced that Pfizer's going to provide enough vaccines for every other country, of which the countries can't provide them for, which is also really important. So I think they were thinking, don't quote me on the stats, but maybe like only 40% of people were possibly going to be vaccinated. But now that Pfizer, or 50 or something, but now that Pfizer have jumped on board, it's now looking like, into the 70s or 80s. We've heard those kind of bits. It's a fly in, fly out. So you can't arrive more than a couple of days before your event. So we'll arrive. We go on a charter flight with ourselves, rowing and swimming. Because I think rowing and swimming are their first week sports, whereas we're 2-week sport. And then as soon as you finish, you've got to be out within 48 hours, give or take. Obviously, you're waiting on a flight. So
that's
for
so
us,
different.
hopefully we're out post the gold medal game, but the swimmers will be leaving out of the village, post the first week of competition, and then athletes will come in. So it's to minimise the amount of people in the village. You can't, I can't go to a cafe in Japan. You won't see Tokyo. You will see the village and your sporting venue, and that is it. Spectators will just be able to clap. They can't cheer, I think, because I think they think that people will, you know how COVID's an airborne disease. You could, if someone had COVID in the crowd. But I think also crowd members, someone said the other day, had to be tested, which I was, surprised at. I just hadn't heard. Lots of measures in place to make sure that it's a COVID-safe games, as safe as it possibly can be.
I guess they're going to go overboard just to kind of make it, because it's such a big event, and it's going to be political based as well. Other countries are going to look at them and be like, oh, so they're going to do everything to kind of make it. We're going to go into excess almost. It seems a bit like they can clap, but they can't. That seems a bit.
Which suits the Japanese population and community anyway, because they're not, if you came to Australia and you said Australians, you can't cheer, that wouldn't work. We are so obnoxious and loud. You go to the footy and you see that. Whereas the Japanese are very respectful and polite, and that's probably how they do support anyway. They're probably not people to cheer, and there's no international spectators. So that will be a challenge, obviously not having any friends or family in the crowd, which I think is one of the most special things. It's from what I've heard from other athletes who have been, is having your family in the crowd. I think that'll be a tough thing to manage and deal with.
Is there going to be an opening ceremony?
I believe so.
Right.
But we don't know what, I don't know if people will march. We typically as hockey players don't march because we play the next morning anyway.
Okay. Oh.
It's a lot of time on feet, which, I spend a lot of time on my feet because I'm working and walking. But if you're a swimmer, my best friend's a swimmer. I remember saying pre the com game, she had to introduce walking into her schedule, into her training schedule, which
That's so funny.
Which I laughed at. Yeah. If you're listening, Jess, yes, I laughed at you. Because they had to walk around the village. The opening and closing ceremony is opening in particular is a lot of time on feet, a lot of extra stress that's obviously not necessarily needed. Don't know.
And tournament structure as well is a hell of a lot different than just playing. Well, most people think you play a weekend club game. You don't get, get 1 day. Is it 1 day off and you play again the next day?
Our schedule's pretty full on. So we play 10 a.m. day 1, 12 p.m. day 2. We have day 3 off. We play at 6 p.m. on day 4 and then 9:15 on day 5. We have day 6 off. We play at 11:15 the next day, and then we have a day off. I think that takes us to Monday or Tuesday, and then you play your quarter, day off, semi, day off, final.
So you're playing a couple of games. You got back to back,
and you got to finish top 4.
In your pool.
In your pool.
Do you know who's in the pool?
Us, Spain, New Zealand.
Okay.
This is really going to test me. I really should know this. Japan, Argentina. I'm missing one.
I don't know, but
China maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's 7.
6 in a pool.
6 in a pool. And you got finished top 4.
Yeah.
That'd be good though. New Zealand's in that same pool. And do you reckon you got the first 3? Do you reckon by the last 3? When they're going to come here, do you reckon it'll be almost full strength squad? Are you going to play a full strength straight through?
They announced today actually a 20 or 22 that they've picked for the game. So we've got, I think, 4 official games that are capped over there against them, and then 1 practice game, I believe.
Yep.
Cool. Which is good. Yep. And then so they've picked a 22 for that, whereas we're taking a whole squad. We don't know who's going to play, when they're going to play, whether they're going to mix it.
I guess it's harder when you're traveling and stuff.
They'll pick, whereas I believe the 2 Pro League games that we have here at the end of June, that will be the Olympic 16 plus the 2 reserves, or 3 reserves in that squad. That's what I'm thinking. But, they might throw a curveball and I don't know.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So
I'm excited. I might come down and watch.
Yeah, the tickets have just gone on sale.
When they come down here? What is it? June?
Yeah, I said this to my work colleague the other day. It's the Saturday and Sunday. We play at 3 and the boys at 12:30. I'm going to say the 27th, 28th, or it's the 26th, 27th of June.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
we'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
There you go, Chris. I said it properly.
Yeah. Grab your tickets, come on down. They're hoping for, hopefully crowds are allowed, but like a full house, because that will be the send off before the group heads away.
It's August.
Olympics start 23rd or 24th of July.
Oh, July.
Yeah, but the group will head to Darwin beforehand. I think that's
another stint.
A couple of weeks, beforehand. So to heat acclimatise again.
Do you know the science behind it? How long it takes?
Yeah, less than people think. So initially, go back years ago, you'd like go spend an extended period of time, and you do like we'd start now 10 years ago heat acclimatising, but they've realised it's actually you only need a dense period of like a couple of weeks or not a couple of days, maybe 10, 14 days, right in the lead up. So me going and heat acclimatising now, whilst yes, I psychologically will be aware of what the heat feels like because it's freezing in Perth, says a Melbourne girl, but it's so cold in Perth at the moment. You don't get benefit from that.
Yeah.
Unless if I was going away tomorrow to Japan, I would have had to have spent the last like 10 to 14 days getting ready.
So about 10 to 14 days, and then how long? So before you diminish.
Oh.
You don't know how long?
I don't actually know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, and because we'll go to the Olympics and be in heat again, you constantly acclimatise. I don't think, I already feel like we got back I stayed on for a couple of days in Broome after Darwin.
Oh, nice.
So I've been back now for a week. And not that I've lost the benefit already. I haven't. But yeah, it's already noticeable. Like, whereas when I first got back, training was so cold. It was, 20 degrees, but we'd been in 34.
Did it feel better to train? Like easier to kind of?
After a while.
Yeah.
The first session we had was not even a hard session and that felt hot.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas then by the end of it, we played at 11:15 and you were much more comfortable in it.
But the first training back when you came back into Perth.
Easy. Yeah. It's like, this is, you don't even sweat. I was in like a long sleeve and a jumper and Perth's not that cold.
Did you feel like your output was higher? Like if you to kind of equate output?
Yeah, I think you can, yeah. I played a club game last Saturday. That was my first session back and it was middle of the day. It's actually quite warm last Saturday. That was maybe 26, 27 degrees. Yeah. And my meters were quite high, like meters per minute GPS data, but didn't feel like I'd, flogged myself. Yeah.
Do you ever communicated by the coaches and even the S&C staff about in terms of in a game, what you need to kind of like a target, like a meters a minute, like we expect you to be around this mark, or is it not really just go play the game?
Yeah, it used to be more so, but I think it is more these days go play the game. The hard thing is as well because depending on the tactics of the game, that can control it. So, the team that was not selected on Wednesday night, which I was a part of, we actually won. We beat the supposed Olympic team 4-1, which was awesome for us to be able to show up and perform that well. But our meters per minute as defenders were actually quite low. But that was because of the way the game, or I think it was because of the way the game was played. And I think when you solely look at a stat and just go, well, why isn't this higher? It's like, well, you don't want someone, if I'm in position, I don't need to sprint out of position to sprint back into position to get my meters up. So it can be dependent on the tactics and the way the game's playing and the way, at the end of a game, if we're leading, we'll try to kill a game. So, waste the time down in a smart way, but it means you're not putting all these risky passes and going and chasing the game. Whereas if you're down, you're going to be chasing the game to try to score late. I think there's a desired area, and it's more thinking, okay, when we go play internationally, this is what we expect you'll hit. So let's try and get as close to that as we can, more just so that you're prepared. Basically, you want your training to be harder than international competition so that when you rock up for an international, you're like, cool, I got this. I'm fine.
Usually as a S&C staff or a conditioning coach, there's athletes that don't like certain things, right? What's one thing as an athlete that you dislike that like a conditioning coach comes up at you one day and goes, oh, we're doing this, and you just go, what is it? Was it a long run? Is it the sprints? What is it?
Oh no, I'm fine with all that kind of stuff. I think we do these things called middle 50s.
Yep.
So you like on a hockey field, it's 4 quarters. So you like accelerate the first quarter. You then stride/sprint the middle 50, and then you decelerate for the last 25. And often they're like set at a certain intensity. And so they're 80% and 90%. And this is actually not from our S&C, it's someone else in the staff. But we've been told to run at a certain pace.
Yeah.
And then the person's there like, go faster. Or like, it's like, no, that's not the point of this. Like, this is a warm-up exercise to get us ready to play. Like, I actually shouldn't be running at 100%. The first rep is at 80. Sometimes the second rep's at 80. Sometimes the second rep's at 90.
Yeah.
But no, I shouldn't be doing it 100% because that's defeating the purpose.
Yeah, that's my issue too.
Yeah.
I get the same thing.
Oh, just grind my gears. I'd be like, you're just running, being like, oh, you don't understand. Like just getting so frustrated. But anyway, that's that's a little silly thing. I mean, I quite like running. I found my love for running through COVID. So I'll happily go for a long run. I mean, yeah, okay, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. You're in the middle of 3x4 400s or 5 800s. It sucks, but I do really enjoy it. So
Still haven't found that lucky.
Yeah, you'll get there. It's it's finding peace with it. So yeah, I'm quite happy I like working hard. I'd very happily flog myself day in, day out. So I don't have really an issue with knowing that I'm going to hurt. That's to be expected.
What about your gym? What are your favourite lifts?
Ooh.
You have a favourite lift? You like it all?
Yeah. I mean, I used to be terrible at pull-ups and we just never used to, or chin-ups. So we never used to do them. And then since being terrible and then getting good at them, I'm never ever stopping them because I find when I stop them, I just lose all my strength in that area, especially as a female.
How weird is that?
Yeah. And you like go to pull and you're like, I'm not moving. I need a band. But now I can pump out like weighted ones and not heavy, not much weight, but a little bit of weight from someone who could barely do a body weight one to now being able to weight them is awesome, and prone group and neutral, which is cool. So now that I'm good at them, I quite like chin-ups. Squatting, as long as you've been squatting. I last year again through COVID was back home in Melbourne, so we were in and out all through our lockdowns, and came back one day and was like, oh, it's all right. I haven't squatted in a couple of weeks or months. I'll just squat. I think it was like all of 40 or 50 kilos, and I could not walk for like 2 weeks. I was so sore because of the eccentric loading, that's what I put it down to probably. But yeah, don't mind a squat, and I've again got better at them as well. So yeah,
that's interesting. Athletes in general, I think, are just a different kind of beast in terms of like physically. Like you can not do something for a week, but still do like all this training, all this other loading. As soon as you introduce one or two different exercises they haven't done, they just pull up so sore.
Yeah,
it's like that. You watch The Simpsons?
No, I don't.
Oh, there was this one episode where Mr. Burns, he got really sick.
Yeah,
and he was talking about he had all these illnesses, but it was like the doctor explained it like it was a door, and all these germs were like pushing into this door, so they weren't like he wasn't sick because they're all trying to get in at once. So it was stopping it, good. But one got through, and then he got sick.
You got everything.
That's kind of like being an athlete almost is, but you're like so finely balanced.
Yeah, well, right? Have you been watching Drive to Survive on Netflix?
No.
I'm not a Formula One fan. I could never understand the sport.
People have mentioned that to me.
It is so good. Now it's season 3, but I feel like as an elite athlete, we're a bit like a Formula One car. Like it's, okay, I'm not as inexpensive as a Formula One car, but in terms of, we're finally tinkered, and there's so many different bits and elements that gets put into it. And so then if one thing's a little bit off, you're in trouble.
Thank you for backing me up on that, because at the start of our preseason, I said that to I said, you boys, we're, like I said, our theme for the year, like we're a performance vehicle, right?
Yep, perfect.
And then so everything, like our gym kind of program was like, right, so we're now like our strength block. So we're building up the chassis. So the chassis of the car needs to be nice and strong before we build up the engine, our horsepower. So that's our power work. And when they come in before training, they do a safety check. So they sit and reach, near the wall, then groin squeezes. They do all that, and they type it in. They do their wellness. That's
awesome.
System safety check and all this sort of stuff. So get around that and make it fun. And,
exactly.
I guess at times it gets dull.
Yeah.
Because it's repetitive. It's the same training. And I guess you got to make it a bit of fun.
Yes, you do. And we've introduced every Monday now, one of the athletes runs a warm-up, so you typically play a game, which is so simple and it's
good idea.
Really, really easy. And then Friday mornings it's a game. So this morning we played cat and mouse. We all had a bib stuck into your shorts, and the cats had to run around stealing the mice that were running around's bib.
That's a good idea.
Play soccer, footy, anything. It's just it's to take out that, here we go, we're doing dynamics again. We still get that movement, we still do it, but you know that at the end of it, it's like a kid in some ways. Here's your reward, we get to play a game. So anything to make it fun, because at the end of the day, if it's not fun, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to want to rock up, and you're not going to get the best out of yourself. So even having fun games, we love mini game sessions where we get to play, as much as the coaches get so sick of us being like, can we play mini games? Can we play mini games? But when we do, it's a competition. It's my team v your team, and hey, this is serious, and we have to create our own competition at the moment because we haven't typically had much. So putting I guess something on the line, and we even, after a couple of trainings a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, played this silly game. There was like a little cutout in one of the walls and you had to try to hit a hockey ball into it from 20 meters away. It's like silly, like, you know, like a little kid game, what you do in your free time. We had some time after training and it then all of a sudden became a weekly tradition for a couple of weeks until they covered the hole because they're doing renovations at the hockey centre. But yeah, it's just, you know, those bits and pieces that bring a smile to what is, you know, it's a job. It's an unpaid job. Yeah. But it's you got to find the fun.
100%, got to keep it fresh.
Yep.
Looking back at your career, was there one game where you kind of look back and go, you know, you found yourself a little bit like, it's like, I belong here, or like I've got it. Well, not I've got it, but I like, you know, I feel comfortable being here.
We played the Dutch. My first ever game in Australia. So I debuted in Japan and played 4 games there. I think it was 5 games there. And then came home and played my first ever game in Melbourne. So at home, in front of home crowd, there's like 5,000 people there. It was sick against the Dutch, who are world number 1.
Yep.
Like incredibly talented. We haven't beaten them in, we're at that stage, 8, 9, 10 years. Like it was a long time the girls hadn't beaten them for. And I never played them before. And, you know, you hear about the Dutch, which, you know, to their credit, they're an incredibly talented team. They're very skillful. They make you work hard to beat them. And not that I don't think I didn't play poorly, but I didn't play, you know, incredibly either. It was my 5th game for Australia. Like I was still finding my feet. But we beat them. We beat them 1-0. And to be part of that, like it was my 5th game for Australia. Girls have been playing for like 100, 200, you know, 250. I hadn't. Yeah. And I was just excited as them, but obviously didn't have the context and, you know, the understanding. I hadn't been there as much as they'd been there. But that was one of those moments. It's like, you know what? They're not unbeatable anymore. They're not untouchable. Yeah. We can do it. And one of the defenders actually said to me in a defensive meeting afterwards, because I went in not a bit blasé, but I kind of just went in and was like, you know what? We can give it a crack. Yeah, cool. They're the world's best, but cool. I'm a 4-game HockeyRoos. Like, you know, what can I do?
Ignorance is bliss almost.
Yeah. And she said to me after the game in our defenders meeting, it was like, far out. Like, I wish I could have just kind of approached it like you did. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're just not carefree in a negative way, but you just didn't worry and you didn't, you know, didn't crumble under the pressure. I put that in quotation marks because, you know, what is pressure? So, that was a really cool moment. And I've had a few of them over the time where, you know, senior athletes, and not that senior athletes should have to come up to junior athletes and say like, you know, good job or well done, but it does go a long way, especially when you look up to that person and they can come and say like, well played today, like, you know, those kind of bits and pieces. And that's really inspiring because you're like, oh, like, okay, yeah, I don't just, this desire to fit in or belong, like you feel like you're wanted there. You feel like you belong. You don't feel like you're just making up an extra number. You know, people want you on that side and they believe in you and you have to believe in yourself. But that game, I guess, stands out for a variety of different reasons. But yeah, it was a pretty surreal experience. I barely slept that night. We had to play Belgium the next day and then lost to them, unfortunately. But we'll never ever forget that game against the Dutch.
That's cool. Do you find that now as you kind of played more games in not so much maybe not have had more pressure, do you feel like you've lost that little bit of carefree attitude?
At times, yeah. Definitely. I think it ebbs and flows.
Yep.
But it's been one of my big work-ons and, again, something that I guess Ben Crow touched on with me, this idea of expectation. Like, what expectation? The expectation of someone else. Well, sorry, I can't control what your expectation of me is. I can only control the expectation that I put on myself. And I think that's where that carefree nature v not carefree nature comes from, or the pressure v not feeling pressure comes from. I think at times, you do lose it. At times you can get so caught up in your head about worrying about a certain receive or a certain thing that's all you focus on. You don't focus on the bigger picture and you miss so much. So continuing to approach a game with a broad perspective, making someone else's day. I heard it in a podcast recently. Like, I'm going to make it your best game today and I'm going to focus all my attention at something Rachel Lynch does incredibly well and has forever done so well. Like, you play with her and she makes you play better. Even if she's playing well or not playing well, she'll just make your day better by the way she communicates to you, by the way she gets around you, she encourages you, she'll challenge you in a positive way. But yeah, like, you know, you're not going to have the best game every single day. Even the best player in the world is not going to have the best game. But if you can make someone else's day better, as in they play better, but improve their day, and out there on the field, yeah, you're going a long way to helping the team succeed.
That's fascinating. Like someone like Lynchy is able to. Those people, yeah, very interesting because do you know if she does go out there and tries to make other people's games, but like does she intentionally go out and do that, or is it something that's a byproduct of her ability to play?
I think it's a combination of both, and Wellesley's the same. Like Wellesley, I remember at Oceania in 2019 barely played, maybe played a half, but her enthusiasm and encouragement on the bench was incredible. You could have missed every single trap. You could have been having the worst day and she would have pumped you up and gotten around you and made you better. And they're the people you need in a team. They're the ones that make the team better, that will always have the team's best interests. Of course, she wanted to be out on the field. I mean, I'm speaking for her now, but I'm sure she would have preferred to be out on the field and Rach have been sitting off and vice versa. They've had many positive battles and they've got the best friendship, which is just incredible, the two of them. But she was still able to put her personal needs to the side and help the betterment of the team.
So selfless.
Yeah, selfless. Seriously, like I honestly think it's one of the most important features as a human and then as an athlete. Because, if we all know these people in a team that when they don't have their day, how detrimental they can be.
Oh, yeah.
And they can ruin the team's performance negatively. Whereas if that person, whilst how good they are, on their bad day can still have a positive impact in whatever way it might be, it goes a long way for the team's success.
So usually we would like to close the podcast off. Uncle Frank's questions. My uncle, have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
I haven't heard about Uncle Frank. So a while back, he didn't know I started a podcast. So, and he was one, I think it was over Easter. He listened to, I think at the time had 8. He listened to all 8 over the Easter long weekend. And then he sent me a massive list of, because I love the podcast. Here's a list of questions I want you to ask at the end, right? And it's actually his birthday today. So
happy birthday, Uncle Frank.
Uncle Frankie D. He'll hear this next Friday. So,
okay.
But I was sending a message. Anyway, my favourite question that he gave me, and I'll give it to you now.
Yep.
You ready for it?
Yeah, go.
If money wasn't an object and nothing was impossible, what would you do?
Oh. Gee whiz. What would I do? Probably very topical right now is I would travel the world.
Okay.
And go for years. I'm talking see and every corner of the world.
Would you fly or would you sail?
Fly. I don't like the water enough.
Don't love the water. Okay.
No. As in I don't mind it. I'm a bit anxious on a boat though, so I think I'd prefer to fly. And I'd probably, I'd create, how far do I want to take this? I'd create some vehicle that could fly me across to Europe quicker than 24 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think.
Where would you start?
That's a good question. I love New York. I've been there before. Oh, nice. And I also really want to go to the Maldives. So maybe the Maldives. Yeah.
Would you go, so you go Maldives, would it be like a backpack? Would you
money's not an issue. So I'm talking like.
Yeah, but some people like that experience, right?
I'm not a camper.
Not a camper.
I'll pay money to stay in a nice location and enjoy it.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. And if money's not an issue, I'm staying at the most expensive hotel, flying first class.
What was it about New York that you loved?
I was there in winter. I was there with my partner and his family, so I think the people I went with, made it really special. I just couldn't get over how many people they were in such a space, and the buildings and just the atmosphere and how the whole city, whatever you want to call it, place, operated. It was impressive that, again, I was there as a tourist, so I got to, it's probably like what people say when they come to Melbourne, and I'm like, oh, it's just Melbourne. But you get to explore so many different aspects. The 9/11 Museum was, oh my goodness, so touching and just, powerfully impacted me. It was such a cool place.
Is it weird, how has Central Park? Is that? Oh, that's just weird. Like a park. That's just the middle of this city. That's full of
huge park. It's not even you say park, and you're like, oh yeah, this little tiny area. It is massive. We went for a run around it, and we barely scratched the surface. It was so cold. She actually ran. Nice. If you ever go to New York, anyone who's listening, you're not going to be going anytime soon. Go to a bakery called Levain. They've got the best choc chip cookies. So we went for a run. to get a choc chip cookie. It was free. It was so cold, and then ran home.
Is that your guilty pleasure? Like sweet treats?
Yeah. Don't mind a bit of chocolate here, there.
Chocolate.
I'm also a baker, so I quite like baking.
Oh.
Yeah. I wouldn't go buy something. I'm quite very much like, I'll make it. Yeah.
What's your go-to?
That's a good question. I haven't made choc chip cookies in ages, but I can make a pretty good choc chip cookie. Made an Anzac biscuit cake the other day.
Anzac biscuit cake?
Yeah. So it's like this. It tastes like an Anzac biscuit, but it's like a butter cake, but with Anzac biscuit flavours. And then you put like Anzac biscuit topping on top. So it was incredible.
Oh, that sounds good.
Really, really good. Anything and everything, to be honest. Like I'll make sourdough bread when I had a starter. Hot cross buns I've made. Yeah.
Bad,
quite
man.
like baking.
I'm bad for that. Grew up in an Italian family, knew cannolis and all sorts of stuff. That's
yum.
So bad.
Yum.
Sfogliatellis.
Yeah.
My auntie makes a nice donut. She makes donuts.
Oh, yum.
My mum's good. My mum can make a cake.
Yeah.
She make cake. She makes all of the fancy
wow.
frosting and all this the cupcakes
cool.
with the little fondants and all this sort of stuff.
Okay,
she's pretty wild.
Talented.
There you go, Mum. There's your shout out.
Yeah.
Before we go, I just want to know.
Yeah.
Any bad habits or anything like that you've had to kind of break down or kind of weed out?
As in a sporting sense or just general bad habits?
General.
I bite my nails.
Yeah, okay.
It's really bad. They're actually really long at the moment, which is good for me.
Is it nerves? Or you don't really know?
I think it's a habit. I just like it's something that, I think I do it when I get nervous. I bite them more or I'm bored. What else is a bad habit? Oh, gosh, you should ask my partner. I'm sure he's got plenty to say. Not that he's been around. He hasn't been in Perth for a while, so maybe I've broken some of them. What else is a bad habit? I'm like, I think it's a good habit, but I'm OCD organised. And I know some people take offence to using the word OCD when you're not actually OCD, but like my organisation it drives people insane because I'm already thinking about weeks in advance and they're like, just calm down. I'm like, no. I want to know because that for me, that's calming. I know. Yeah, so then because I'm so busy, if I can plan, I set it aside. I don't wake up every day going, what am I doing today? Like today was planned 2 weeks ago and I dealt with it 2 weeks ago. So I'm kind of constantly working ahead like that. So that's a bad habit. I say a lot. I say like a lot.
You say like a lot?
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
I'm bad. I was listening to because when I go edit it, I'll rewatch podcasts and that. And there was one word I said a lot, but it wasn't like. It was something like that. I think I said something like that. I say that a lot. And that's like, when you communicate, like filler words like that.
Yeah. So I say as well. Like you'll hear at the end of my answers. It's like my.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like my or whatever how I put together the lead into then passing the conversation over to someone else. It's just what I do.
Awesome. So you got anything? So what's the plan? What are you going down with the next couple of days, weeks?
Yeah, so we play club hockey tomorrow.
Who do you play for?
I play for Suburban Lions.
Okay.
Playing against Wasps tomorrow. That will be a good game. Bit of recovery on Sunday, full week of training, couple of or at least one game, and then we head to New Zealand, I think next Saturday or Sunday. So I spend 2 weeks there, Palmerston North, I think a low of 3 degrees and a top of 10. Which is going to be cold.
That's cold in here. You're
freezing. I know. I'm literally rugged up. I'm not going to survive. And so then we're back for a couple of weeks. We get selection pretty soon after we get back. Then it'll be announced publicly. And then from there, it all happens. All systems go. And then we'll see what the rest of the year has in store. My partner's away over in the UK at the moment. So he's studying over there. So he'll be back hopefully end of September. So spend a bit of time with him, Hockey One, and then it'll be leading into Com Games and World Cup next year, which is exciting.
You want to shout anyone out before?
Shout out. Who can I shout out? Oh, Mum and Dad, if they listen to this, they'll probably listen to it. Shout out to them. I mean, I think us as athletes don't get to where, or as any individuals don't get to where we get to without our parents. And I don't think I appreciated them enough or told them how much I love them or appreciated them when I was a kid and took it for granted. Shout out to Mum and Dad. Thank you, even if I don't tell you enough. Shout out to my younger brother. He always gets forgotten. I have tripled older brothers, which is a fun fact. And then people jump in and they're like, oh, what? Seriously? And then my poor younger brother, I then don't get to say him.
No.
Shout out to my younger brother and also my older brothers.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
There you go.
That'll do.
Sophie,
leave it there.
Thank you very much. It's been a good ride and a good time. And thank you everyone for listening. Cheers.